Okay, I'm finally gonna go back as far back as I left off, which is 11 months ago, which is insane. And try to catch up with all the ones I have yet to see because I'm not new to Rotten Mango. Since she started posting these, I have seen all the ones beforehand, except when I decided to record my reactions to it is when I started falling off from it. So all the ones dating back from this video, so scrolling down here is ones that I need to get caught up with. From 11 months ago to this video, to the ones in the present that I have yet to watch are the ones that I still need to get to, if you guys that makes sense without making it super confusing. So let's just see what this one's about. Teen kills transgender classmate to see if it will scream like a girl or a boy. He looks like the type of person to do that. Absolutely just disgusting. Why even have that mindset? Why do you care? Why does it bother you if why does it bother you? I had a friend a long time ago, like maybe my freshman, sophomore year in high school. He was also transgender. I didn't know until he told me. And did that change anything? No. I'm like, good for you. What does that have anything to do with me? What is it gonna affect me essentially in any negative way? It's not, because it's none of my business. It's not my goddamn life. Why the fuck do you care?
Bada bing, bada boo.
15-year-old Eddie is trying to keep his mind together. Honestly, he's trying to get a grip. He is a world kickboxing champion for his age group when he was just 11 years old, for crying out loud. I mean, he's thinking to himself, come on, get it together. So to keep himself busy, I mean, honestly, to keep his mind from falling apart, Eddie goes on a jog. It was more like a sprint at the local park called Linear Park. And he is just plagued by all of these negative thoughts all week. And he just wants to distract himself because every second of every single day for the past 7 days, his eyes are glued to his phone nonstop. He's just waiting. Essentially, it's almost Valentine's Day. He's 15 and the girl that he likes still has not texted him, and it's driving him mad. I mean, what does it mean? Eddie comes home from his jog. He changes out of his soiled clothes and he starts Googling on his computer how to combat anxiety. All the while, he's checking his phone nonstop. He's tapping on the screen just to see if he missed a notification. He's checking the button on the side to make sure it's not on silent mode. Ding! Eddie rushes to click open his messages. It's not her. It's an old classmate of his named Scarlet. She texts, my brother just told me not to go anywhere near Linear Park because a woman got stabbed there. Eddie's fingers hover over the keyboard. Jesus, really? Yeah, they say it's murder.
Was it you?
Holy crap. Eddie puts his phone down and he lets the news sink in. Somebody was murdered at the very park that he had just been to. When the realization of that hit, Eddie would do two things. One, he would hide the 5-inch knife in his room that was covered in blood. And two, he would never speak again.
He would never speak again, as in period. He took himself out. Clearly not, because we see the mugshot.
We would like to thank today's sponsors who have made it possible for Rotten Mango to support both the Point Foundation and Peace in Mind. The Point Foundation is America's largest scholarship granting nonprofit organization for post-grade school LGBTQ students. Peace in Mind is an England and Wales-based fundraiser started by Brianna Jai's mother of today's case, Esther Jai. Now, in remembrance of their daughter, she has teamed up with Mindfulness in Schools Project, who provides curriculum for students and training for teachers with the sole focus of bringing mindfulness into the public grade school community. This episode's partnerships have also made it possible to support Rotten Mango's growing team of dedicated researchers and translators, and we would also like to thank you guys, our listeners, for your continued support as we work on our mission to be worthy advocates of these causes.
Now, sorry, I had to take my dog outside for a
listeners,
second.
for your continued support as we work on our mission to be worthy advocates of these causes. Now, as always, full show notes are available at rottenmangopodcast.com. Before we get into today's case, though, I do want to note some very important disclaimers. Today's case revolves around a hate crime committed against a young member of the LGBTQIA+ community. Brianna Jai was targeted in part because she was transgender. So if this is a topic that is very difficult to listen to, please go take care of yourself, get some rest. I'll see you in the next one. Now, with that being said, I want to make it explicitly clear that Brianna's pronouns have been and still are she, her. However, there will be moments in this episode where I read to you text message evidence where a killer does not use her proper pronouns. I think if
Yeah,
I were to fix the incorrect pronoun usage, it would no longer really even be considered evidence, some of the text messages. I
I get
think the
it. I
only
get
way to
it.
highlight the cruelty behind the motive of the murder is to keep them as they are. So I will be reading them verbatim, especially because this person, the killer, Eddie Radcliffe, is trying to appeal his sentence. So hopefully this is a reminder of what kind of person he is and what he did. So
You don't need, I don't know why there would be some people that would need a reminder. I mean, it's literally right there. Like, that is just so, why? Literally, why? How pathetic are you? Like, are you jealous? Are you also like wanting to transition and you're just jealous that what's her name, Brianna? Um, had the courage to do it and express who they believe is their true selves, and then you decide to take your hate out on her and make this type of violent crime against her. Is that what it is? I find that's what it is majority of the time. Really jealous people who are, I don't run into cases like these hardly ever. It's mainly just hate against people who are gay, let's say that. And it's usually because the person who committed the crime is in the closet themselves, so they're just, like, projecting. Is that what it is? Like, because there's literally no other reason to do this.
with that being said, let's get into it. The new transfer at Birchwood Community High School was a little weird. I mean, yeah, she had an obsession with eyeballs. It was kind of like this unspoken
Eyeballs.
rule amongst all of her peers. Don't look her in the eye. Like if you're passing her in the hallway, if you glance up from your desk in class and she's looking at you, don't look her directly in the eye. There was just something not
Is she
right about her
Medusa or
eyes. I
something?
mean, don't get me wrong. They're beautiful. They're totally fine. Everything's okay. But she just had this weird thing with staring. You know how you can tell when somebody is watching you? Well, students
Yes.
would look up, and from across the cafeteria, there would just be a set of deep blue eyes staring directly at them. It felt like she was peering into their souls. It was creepy. And she was known for having this little journal that she would carry with her everywhere. If you opened it up to a random page, you would likely see doodles of Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker, the
Not the
serial
Night
killer.
Stalker.
She thought it was particularly fascinating that Richard Ramirez had gouged out one of his victims' eyeballs and placed them in his jewelry box. The eyeballs were like his souvenir, they were like his trophy. The new girl would go around telling people that she could talk about Richard Ramirez for hours, and the eyeballs that he took, she could talk about it for days.
Sorry, new girl. I don't think we're gonna be friends. Please stay away from me. Listen, it's just some people who can take it a little bit too far when it comes to true crimes and stuff. I, for one, evidently am very into true crime. I've mentioned it before. I used to want to go into the criminal justice field, whether it be a judge, detective, forensic scientist. I wanted to go in that field, but I'm going a different route. And I watch a lot of true crime cases, but never would I ever be so bent and like extremely fascinated to a sense to be just researching a particular criminal and be just fascinated by their movements and everything. That's so concerning.
She was weird, but she only stayed for 10 weeks. Within 10 weeks, the new transfer's locker would be cleaned out, her desk would be emptied, and the administrators put the school on lockdown. Nobody was allowed to talk about the new girl anymore. But in the hallways, while the teachers weren't listening, the students would huddle together and whisper, "Did you hear what happened to her? I heard she's friends with Eddie Radcliffe." 15-year-old Eddie Radcliffe is standing
Ew.
in court. He hasn't said a single word to the judge since the trial started. He won't talk. Instead, he stands up and he holds up a sign above his head. It reads, "Not guilty." Eddie Radcliffe was pleading not guilty to the murder of 16-year-old Brianna Jai, a transgender high school student that he had at a local park stabbed her and left her for dead. There was a text message read out in court that Eddie sent to a friend just before the murder. The text read, "I wanted to see if it would scream like a boy or girl."
Are you still not guilty,
And
dumbass?
another text would read, "I wanted to know what size body part it had."
And he's a holding sign saying not guilty.
Exactly. So, I mean, it was pretty rare for Brianna to leave the house, but when she did, she always let her mom know. So, Brianna's doorbell camera catches her leaving the house on February 11th, 2023, around 12:45
Not a
p.m.
day before
And
my
just from looking at
birthday.
Brianna, I mean, she seems to kind of give the gray, gloomy weather some color. Her red hair, it's pin straight down to her waist, and it's like radiant, it's popping. And she's wearing this fluffy white coat that matches her white knee-high socks. She's got this pink and white checkered bag, and even her phone case is pink. Now, as she walks and opens the gate to the sidewalk, she sends a message to her mom. "Dogs are locked up, gonna go meet a friend." Brianna likely felt like she's on some sort of mission. I mean, she's following the instructions clearly, but it just felt tedious and it didn't make any sense.
Instructions?
She had to walk 25 minutes.
He baited her. Like, how did they meet? Through social media? And what do you mean instructions? Meet me at this park at this time.
To the bus station, even though there's a bus station 3 minutes away from her house. She was told to walk 25 minutes to a different one. Then she had to wait another 30 minutes at that bus station before number 28 bus pulls up. The bus is fairly empty. Only about 8 people are on board. She pays for her ticket and then she sits down through this 15-minute bus ride on a route that's going to drive past her house. So it's
So
like
she went further and then you
Sketchy
drove back.
instructions.
Yeah, so she went 25 minutes into direction A, but she's trying to get to direction B.
Yeah.
Yeah, it didn't make any sense. I mean, what was this all for? You can tell by the CCTV footage that Brianna's a little bit nervous. She's texting on her pink cell phone and she's giving a rundown of the whole day to her best friend, Amelia. Brianna is very anxious. She's never rode the bus alone, let alone from a bus station 25 minutes from her house. So she's quickly sitting down in the seat closest to the bus driver, closest to the front doors, like the safest seat. And she puts her little bag on her lap and she texts Amelia, her comfort person. And she's joking to Amelia that the bus is driving so wonky, like side to side, it's going to tip over before she even makes it to her destination. She's feeling really anxious about this. At 1:41 p.m., as the bus drives past her house, Brianna texts her mom, "I'm on the bus by myself. I'm scared." And her mom texts, "Oh, well, that's good." And then hugs. So even from that one text, Brianna could tell that her mom was very proud of her. She's taking these big steps to confront that anxiety head on that day. She could practically hear her mom being like, "This is a big breakthrough. This is really good." And honestly, it kind of was. I mean, she bought a bus ticket by herself. She boarded the bus by herself. And now she's going to go meet a friend all on her own. I mean, honestly, this is a pretty big deal. But it would be the last exchange ever between Brianna and her mother. Brianna would have little more than 2 hours left to live. She would be found dead with injuries to her back, her chest, her head, and with a total of 28 stab wounds. Her pink blood-stained phone would be found in a drain, reportedly lighting up with messages from her friends. They would read, "Girl, where are you?" And another one would read, "Girl, is everything okay? Some teenage girl got killed near Linear Park. It's on the news everywhere." Most of Brianna's friends remember vividly, maybe too vividly, where they were and what they were doing on February 11th. It was the day that Brianna was taken from them. So
Yeah, I can imagine that would be pretty. Just imagine having your friend just taken away from you like that. Not that it's about you, but it's quite traumatizing to yourself as well. But why would it be considered such a big thing for her to be on her own, like doing these what seems to be just really normal everyday activities for people?
it's
Or
very
what
hard to
happened
forget.
beforehand?
15-year-old Scarlet, she grabbed her phone and she started tapping away. She's texting a ton of her friends that live nearby. My brother just told me not to go to Linear Park because a woman got stabbed. The text message seemed calm, but honestly, Scarlett was freaking out. She's texting everybody she knows, trying to check up on them. I mean, the park is so close to her house. Everybody in this part of town went to that park. It is the place to go. Her parents had just been at that park with their dog. I mean, she had just been there not too long ago. It's like everybody she knew had been at that park. Scarlett turns off her Minecraft game and starts her Google searching. Linear Park murder. Colchith Linear Park. Birchwood woman stabbing. Woman stabbed in park. Scarlett pauses on a headline, reading it carefully, double checking. Woman involved in Linear Park stabbing is alive and taken to hospital in air ambulance. She starts sending the articles to all her friends. They're alive. They're alive. Whoever it is alive. Another reply comes in. No, the police just confirmed the death of the woman found with serious injuries. Scarlett just stares at her phone. I mean, she's not really sure what to say. So she just hesitates and types back, okay, when do you think they'll find out a name? And then she goes right back to her Google search. In the middle of her investigations, she gets a reply from a friend. Jesus, really? And she quickly responds, they say it's murder. And he responds, holy crap. Scarlett goes back through her searching, but there's just something that's bothering her. All of her friends, except one, she's heard from. But maybe that's not that big of a deal, right? I mean, she did say that she was going to go meet a boy from Manchester. But just in case, Scarlett texted her friend Brianna, girl, is everything okay? Scarlett likely thought if Brianna doesn't respond, she could at least go check up on her. You know, they don't live that far away. Meanwhile, Brianna's best friend Amelia lived 3 hours away, and she just opened one eye. She was feeling so drowsy all day, and she's contemplating, should I go back to sleep and nap some more? But instead, she rolls over, she grabs her phone, and she's smiling, and she's going to text Brianna back. But, you know, because Brianna has been so anxious about riding the bus earlier that day, but she, you know, hopefully had a safe journey, and Amelia was excited to ask her about it because they're basically sisters. Even though they never physically met in person yet, they talked on the phone every single day, like hours a day. They would get ready on FaceTime. They would tell each other all of their secrets. They even planned to rent an apartment together after they graduated high school.
So Scarlett was texting
Eddie,
right?
Yes.
And Scarlett also was texting Brianna, and Brianna didn't respond.
Brianna's not responding. Scarlett's texting everybody because, you know, when you're in high school and you find out that someone got stabbed at a place that you all frequent, I mean, she's just spreading the news. Yeah. Everybody's texting everyone at this point. But Brianna is the only one not responding to her. And it's making her really anxious. Right. Same with Amelia. Amelia doesn't really know what's happened at the park because she lives 3 hours away. But this is her best friend. And she hasn't responded. Last she heard from Brianna, she was on a bus by herself. She was anxious, nervous, and then she got off at the bus stop. And we don't know really what's going on. They were going to meet later this year. So Amelia was like counting down the days for when she was finally going to meet Brianna in person. But right now she's counting down the seconds. Why isn't Brianna texting her back? It had been like 8 hours since they last texted. They never went this long without texting.
Has she heard about the news?
No.
Okay.
So Amelia sends another follow-up text. She's worried, but she's trying not to sound paranoid. And she's thinking it's probably nothing. Maybe she's also taking a nap. To lighten her anxiety, Amelia texts jokingly, girl, you better not be dead. Amelia, like the rest of the world, would not.
Just imagine how heartbroken just this message, bro, that is so heartbreaking.
Better not be dead. Amelia, like the rest of the world, would not find out the truth until later. At 6:25 the following evening, Scarlett chooses her favorite photo of Brianna to upload to her Snapchat. In the photo, Brianna is wearing a brown striped sweater, her trademark round glasses, and she's holding like this half-eaten candy bar and she's smiling at the camera. Scarlett writes, rest in peace. Brianna was one of the best people I've ever met and such an amazing friend. It is so sickening what got done to her. It is absolutely sickening. There's a lot of information that you can gain about a person through their eye contact or their lack thereof. So it may vary across different cultures, but in the United States, it is the norm to make regular eye contact with the person that you're speaking with to show them that you're interested in what they're saying. If someone is never quite meeting your eye when they're talking to you, you might find them to be distrustful. You might at least think that they're maybe a little bit socially awkward. You're going to think something.
I would caught myself in that. I thought she was gonna say something like super left field, like they are a secret killer and stuff. I was like, no, because I have trouble keeping eye contact. I'm better at it now, but it was say when I was like maybe early high school, especially middle school, I could not, I was not good with eye contact. Till a teacher pulled me over outside of class one time and had a chat with me about it. What did they say exactly? I don't know, but being a bit socially awkward, that's fine. I can
You
admit
might at
that.
least think that they're maybe a little bit socially awkward. You're going to think something. Or if someone holds your gaze for too long, if the eye contact is too long, too frequent, it's a
Too
different kind of
intense.
unsettling.
It's like,
I mean, it's such a subtle thing that humans subconsciously pick up on. There is no rule book. It's just a matter of seconds. When someone holds eye contact for too little or too long, our brains register, oh my God, something is weird. So then, is there a correct amount of time to hold someone's eye contact? Actually, apparently there is. Research has
I think
revealed
there
that the
is.
average preferred duration for eye contact is about 3.3 seconds. Now, you have about like a 0.5 to a full second grace period. So as long as you're anywhere between like the 2 to 4 seconds of eye contact, you'll be fine.
That is very true. Now you
Yes.
think about it,
yes, it is.
like more doesn't mean better.
No,
Like-
and it's so we don't even have like a set timer in our bodies. We just kind of know.
Yeah. You just look
It's-
Yeah, you look away, exactly. Or I tend to blink a lot. One, because my eyes are super dry, but I guess it's just a habit of mine. I just blink a lot. I just kind of look around a little bit. You don't just completely stare into the person's eyes like, I'm listening. It's like, okay, you're kind of creeping me out here. So yeah, it does. But you don't really think about it like, okay, 1, 2, 3, look away. One, like it's just you just we
away.
do it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
and
so interesting.
everybody has similar timelines for that.
Yeah.
It doesn't like drastically change per person. It's very interesting. Now, Catherine Vise made eye contact with a ton of people on February 11th, 2023. Now, it's a little damp that afternoon, but Catherine and her husband, they're walking their dogs in the local park called Linear Park. I mean, it's called like a gem of a dog walk. The locals called it that. They love walking their dogs there. Now, the couple, they passed by and smiled politely at dozens of other people jogging, walking their dogs, biking, playing with their friends. I mean,
But that's just another thing to point out though. If this park is just so popular amongst the locals, this guy, I forgot his name, what, Eddie, really just did not care. Because Brianna, it seemed, I think she mentioned that she was going to meet up with this boy, right? Which would then evidently be Eddie. I mean, if he had to had m- met up with Brianna in the terms that he already knew. And that's why he planned the attack. Like, yeah, meet me at this park. Unless he didn't know and found out at that moment. And I think that would be highly unlikely though. So I think he knew and just planned it at beforehand. But usually people would choose some form of really secluded area. So
it's
what
not a
is
quiet
up
time at the
there?
park. But the park is interesting because it never feels overcrowded, even though there's a ton of people. Interestingly enough, the park was actually built on abandoned railway lines. So the paths would diverge, they'd come together. There's steps and benches just placed randomly around the park. There's partially hidden wooded areas. It would probably be a very sinister place at 3 a.m, but it's pretty peaceful and private during the day. It's very busy, but it's also very secluded all at once. So if you go to the main areas, there's so much action. But if you
So it's like
kind
a
of
huge
travel
park.
off the broken path,
I
it
see.
can get very
Okay.
secluded very quickly.
I see.
But as the Vise couple turn the corner, they see in front of them a young man hunched over, putting a leash on his fluffy white dog. They take a step forward, ready to continue their little walk. But this one step is enough for them to notice that the way that
It
the
was her
afternoon
jacket?
sunlight is reflecting off the leash, that it's not a leash. It's a knife.
What?
Another step forward, and their eyes travel downward, and they realize that is not a dog.
It's her jacket.
It is a girl wearing a fluffy white coat.
They just walked into.
Yes. And she's covered in blood.
Oh my
Suddenly,
gosh.
the man that's hunched over stands upright. He makes eye contact with them briefly. It's so quick. The eye contact is like 2
Runs
seconds, not
away?
even, maybe like a half a second. Catherine's not even sure if their eyes really met. And he quickly pulls his hood up to hide his face away, and then he starts stumbling away. He starts running
What the
off.
fuck?
That's when another figure stands up over the lifeless body on the ground. And this one is
There's
smaller
two?
than the first. And she catches Catherine's attention. It's
She's
a high
like
school girl.
smiling.
She just looks so out of place in this wild scene. I mean, she looks like she should be at school. She looks like she should be at the mall with her friends or playing Monopoly at home. And her eyes slowly meet Catherine's. And the girl doesn't look scared. The girl doesn't look shocked. Her face is blank. I mean, it's free of any emotion. She's just staring, unblinking. I mean, her eyes are wide. She's got this heavy, dark makeup around them. Catherine wants to look away, but her brain is not even registering what she's looking at, or even who she's looking at and what's going on. But there is just something about this girl's deep blue irises that keep her from pulling away. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, 4 Mississippi, 5 Mississippi, 6 Mississippi, 7 Mississippi,
We're just
8
having a staring
Mississippi.
contest.
8 full seconds.
They just stood there for 8 seconds.
8 seconds staring at each other, frozen. And the girl doesn't even look scared. She doesn't look shocked. She's just staring at her while standing over a lifeless body. Those might have been the longest 8 seconds of Catherine's life. It was long enough for even Eddie, who had fled the scene immediately, to notice that he was running away by himself.
Yeah, that really surprised me though. I was not expecting to hear there was a second person at that crime partaking in that crime with Eddie. But I guess it makes sense with that girl she was talking about in the beginning. But these moments, hearing these moments, I like place myself in that situation. Like, say I was walking my dog in a park and like walk into a situation that I thought I would never see in my life. I could sit here and be like, I would be like, yo, what the fuck are you doing, you crazy bitch? What is wrong with you? And like, I don't know if I would immediately run over, but I always have my phone on me. I would call somebody. Um, but to have like a confrontation like that, just like a staring contest, I would not know like what to do. Like, does this girl also have a weapon? She doesn't seem scared like that guy who ran away. So clearly she's unhinged. She can do something super crazy, unpredictable. And it's not like I have like a huge scary guard dog. So yeah, it's just so many things that can happen at that time period. Like, what would you do?
And immediately, to notice that he was running away by himself. He turned around and he saw his accomplice standing near the couple.
I
What
wonder
the hell is she
the
doing?
relationship
Why is Scarlet not coming? In the UK, there's a game called Knock Knock Ginger. I don't know why they call it that, but it's a game that we're all pretty familiar with to some extent. So it's called Ding Dong Ditch in America. The rules of the games follow. Step
Knock Knock
1, find the
Ginger?
target house. The only condition is the resident must be home. Step 2, you sneak to their front door and you ring the bell. Step 3, before the door opens, you run and you hide. The objective being that the resident's gonna open the door, see that nobody's there, they're gonna look around very confused, and you're gonna be giggling to yourself in the little bushes. Residents of Birchwood were used to getting ding-dong ditched. It's a small town. I mean, the high schoolers, they don't really have a long list of fun activities that they can indulge in at night, so they go knock knock ginger or ding dong ditch. One resident, late one night, gets a knock at their front door. They walk over and they look through the peephole. Nothing. It's just dark outside.
I'm not opening the
They're
door.
like, this is strange. I mean, I could have sworn that I heard someone knocking on the door.
I never open the fucking door, especially if I'm not expecting anybody or somebody else in the house isn't expecting anybody, especially at nighttime.
So they turn the lock, grab the handle, swing open the door, and the resident freezes. It's like a cold wind just came into their house. It's so unsettling. It's so unnerving. That is not how you're supposed to play Ding Dong Ditch. Because there on the street, standing there in the dark with nothing but the streetlight illuminating her, is a girl.
Scarlet?
She's just staring at the resident. She's not hiding. She's just like Chucky. She's just standing on the street,
no.
staring directly at the resident.
You mean like she's not standing in front of the door,
No,
but all the way back on the street?
on the street,
So
past the
she-
driveway.
Okay, that's creepy.
Exactly. You're supposed to hide and it's supposed to be hee, the resident
Under
doesn't know
the
who
street
did it.
lamp.
She's just staring at the resident. That's not how you play Ding Dong Ditch. That was Scarlet's favorite way to play, though.
Yeah, she looks
Oh,
unhinged.
that is her game.
That's her game.
Oh, that's crazy. Like she's
Yeah.
trying to intimidate and freak out the people.
Exactly. Now, have you heard of what seatbelting is? It's a form of abusive bullying where someone grabs your backpack straps from the front and yanks them all the way down to the ground until you fall. It causes
Never
you to
seen
not
that.
only fall, but it forms these really intense rug burns under your underarms if they pull too hard from all the force. Brianna is sitting in the school's inclusion unit. It's like a class dedicated to helping students who need extra support or students who are about to get suspended. It's such an odd mix of students in there, I'm not gonna lie. I mean, some students are placed in the inclusion unit for having behavioral issues, like displaying aggression and having tendencies of violence. Like they're about to get suspended from school. That's why they're in that unit.
Yeah, they're the
And
bad
then other
kids.
students are there because they're very socially anxious and they're nervous to be in a full classroom. Like I'm sure it's different by school and case by case basis, but ultimately you could end up with the biggest bullies in the school who are incredibly aggressive. And then you could end
Yeah.
up with all the socially anxious, more timid students in the school who need a safe space, all in
Why
the
would you
inclusion
combine
unit.
them?
It's just kind of
Yeah,
odd.
it's kind of.
Yeah. Now, Brianna is there because the school administrators thought that she was too socially anxious. She wasn't as active or outgoing and loud as they wanted her to be. And it's believed that Brianna was seatbelted and beaten by a gang of school children. It's alleged that the kids would throw bottles at her, call her names. And if that's true, I mean, yeah, I would be socially anxious too. I mean, I think anybody would be. But one day, a new girl, a new transfer from a different school, walks into the inclusion study and sits down right next to Brianna.
Scarlet, fuck
She's
out
got a
of here.
stack of journals and pink gel pens and these deep blue striking eyes. And she looks at Brianna, leans over and says, "I like your eyeliner." Brianna smiled. That night, Scarlet would go home to text a friend from her old school, Walmart John Wick. Yeah, that's the name on her phone. I mean, well, in the UK, she had him under Tesco John Wick, but it's kind of like saying Walmart John Wick.
Yeah, I get it.
And if you don't know, John Wick is the movie series of an ex-hitman. But his real name, Walmart John Wick, is Eddie Radcliffe. She would text him, "I'm obsessed over someone I know, but I don't have feelings for them. She's called Brianna, and I don't know how to explain it. Also, she has a DICK. LOL." That's what she texted.
What?
You're obsessed over her, though.
Very interesting. Now, a little bit about Brianna. I mean, I think the best way to sum it up is her childhood is, why would you have a black PlayStation controller when you can have a pink one? Like, it's not only a very valid question, but it's a very good question. Brianna
That's a good
was putting
question.
another coat of pink nail polish onto her PlayStation controller. And it's a whole process, you know, because you have to wait for the paint to dry and then add another coat. And then you don't want to get it into like the crevices or get it too thick with the polish. And then the polish has got to be soft. But it's worth it because everything in Brianna's room had to be pink. Like, it's a non-negotiable. Her fluffy eye masks, her bags, her clothes, her bed sheets, everything is pink. She would even ask her mom, Esther, like, when I turn 18, can you buy me a pink car? Brianna was getting bullied at school, but when she came home, she tried her best to be uplifting. She would post these TikToks of herself getting ready for school. She would make her uniform cuter by pairing it with like these cute blazers or the knee-high socks.
Y'all hating because she looks cute. Bro,
her headbands, and she would always put these
I hate
pink little
people.
bows in her red waist length mermaid looking hair, and she would lip sync to these very popular songs on TikTok. Brianna actually managed to build a tight-knit community on TikTok. She made a lot of friends on there. She found a lot of safety and familiarity in the online transgender communities, but she also contributed heavily to it. She would talk to online friends that she's never met before and help them with everything that they're going through. I mean, she knows how hard it is to be transgender, and to even the potential of making it 1% easier for someone else to go through the same thing that she went through. She was going to spend all day helping them. She would help them find doctors in their area. She would try talking to them about embracing their style. She would give insight on hormone treatments. That was her mission, just to make people happy. One of the toughest experiences to go through is, they say, it's to be someone's strength when you're at your weakest. And it seems like that's what Brianna did every day. A friend of Brianna said, I mean, it's very obvious that she was struggling with mental health and being bullied online and in real life. You know, there's no denying that. But she kept going, and it didn't ever stop her from doing anything. After school, Brianna would go on her phone and see all the people that needed
Jolly
her support.
Ranchers
And she would
or
be
little
that
bow
support.
ties.
She would FaceTime her friends, and she would practice gymnastics on FaceTime. Like, she would do those backflips in her pink room, and every time she would
girl.
fall flat on her butt, she and her friends would just start bust out laughing. Or if she noticed that one of her friends wasn't having a good day, she would try to FaceTime them and do all these silly little things to just try and make them laugh. Instead of drinking apple juice, because she would have like apple juice in a cup, she would pour them into little shot glasses and pretend to take shots of them. I mean, just so she could get a smile out of a friend who really just didn't feel like smiling that day. That was her goal. That's her ultimate plan. And the minute that she would get a smile out of you, she'd make you sit down, and you would be her guinea pig for a new makeup look that she's trying. But I imagine that it would be very hard to say no to someone like Brianna. She is the friend, they say, that would spontaneously decide to go to the market in her Barbie pink pajamas to buy hair dye and then start dyeing her hair a completely new color at 3 a.m. on a school night. Like, that's the amount of fun and life that she had.
It's so hard to like soak all this in, how fun and bright she seems to be around for the people around her and just her in general. When I know what happened to her, I'm like trying to envision her happy life and like see what it would be like to be one of her friends back when I was in high school and stuff, but I just can't. Like, literally, for what reason? Because you're psychotic?
Brianna also never took the easy way out. From never having met her, from what I can just gather online, reading about what everybody said about her, it feels like she was someone that faced everything head on. She lived and loved very intensely. And I know that sounds cheesy, but just like, hear me out. She was incredibly vulnerable, but also very fearless at the same time. So, for example,
it.
she was hospitalized for an eating disorder, and she struggled immensely with her relationship with food. But at the same time, her favorite food was Domino's pizza. And so she would always try to face these difficulties and these fears, and she would scream down the stairs, "Mom, can we have Domino's tonight?" And it's like she just wanted to do everything that she could to try and live the way she wanted, no matter what. I mean, she just had this way of pulling people in towards her, and she wasn't really outgoing. She's not really this crazy loud person. She was just actually very anxious and shy, but she had this energy about her that was so contagious that people were naturally drawn to her. One friend of hers said, "She made me feel unstoppable as a trans girl. And she made me feel really pretty because, I don't know, she would never let me put
sweet.
myself down." And it just takes someone really, really special, I think, to be able to do that. And maybe that's what attracted Scarlet to Brianna. Scarlet was absolutely fascinated by Brianna. They would
Jealous
go to
bitch.
McDonald's after school just to hang out and talk. And they both had a lot in common. You know, they both bonded over their anxiety, eating disorders, but also makeup and clothing choices. Scarlet would just stare at Brianna's eyes every time she talked. And there was just something about Brianna that made Scarlet feel a lot of emotions at once. Jealous, excited, Obsessed? Angry? I mean, she couldn't really quite put her finger on it, but she was obsessed. There were rumors circulating at the high school about the new transfer, Scarlet. People said, yeah, not only is she obsessed with eyeballs, you know she's a Satanist, right? She apparently does these blood rituals, and she's asking some of the others to join her this weekend as she sacrifices a goat.
She looks like it, honestly. I didn't want to say it because I don't want to just put anybody in a box like that who dress like her, but she just dresses like any other witch would dress like. I'm not going to go back to that picture. The picture they keep showing of her.
I don't even know what that means. Other students alleged that they saw her post a video on social media. Yeah, it was of herself stabbing a couch with a bloodied knife. I don't know if it's real blood. Others would just say, I don't really like her energy. I mean, she always talks about killing goats, and she likes making a lot of dead baby jokes that just aren't really funny. The nicer students would say, I mean, she's definitely not a normal person, right? But probably the strangest rumor was that Scarlet had to transfer from her old school because she poisoned a classmate. Some of the other students thought it was pushing it a bit too far. They're like, well, that doesn't make sense. We can't just spread rumors like that. What do you mean she poisoned a classmate? If she poisoned a classmate from her old school, wouldn't they expel her? Wouldn't she be in big trouble? How could she just transfer to our school?
That too.
We don't know if Brianna heard these rumors, but if she did, Brianna was also the type to ignore them. I mean, people spread rumors for all sorts of nasty reasons. Brianna herself had been on the receiving end of these fake, false rumors, and it wouldn't be right for her to treat someone else differently because of these rumors. It just, to her, seemed like a different form of bullying, like there was no truth to it. Esther Jai, Brianna's mom, had just gotten home from work. She puts her work bag down and she hears her youngest daughter screaming for help. So she throws the rest of her stuff down, races up the stairs, taking 2 steps at a time, and she flings open the door to Brianna's room. And
I would imagine that Scarlet maybe behaved a little differently when she was around Brianna. So maybe that's why she also, if she did hear the rumors, would choose to kind of ignore those rumors, because if Scarlet was acting as weird as she does with maybe everyone else, making those really bizarre, like bizarre isn't even a proper word to use to describe it, but those really inappropriate dark jokes, then I would think maybe Brianna would react a little differently. No matter how nice of a person she's described to us, I don't think that's something that even a super nice person would ignore. Maybe she'd be a little bit more cautious around Scarlet, but I think Scarlet maybe played a bit of a two-face card.
And Brianna is laying in a fetal position, clutching her stomach, shaking in pain, sobbing. She's crying and she screams, Mom, I think I'm gonna die.
Did she try
Brianna
to
had
poison
struggled
you?
with self-harm before, and Esther was likely concerned that Brianna had hurt herself somehow. But Brianna continued to scream and cry, help, don't leave me, it hurts. Esther had never seen Brianna like this before. I mean, she had never been a sickly child. Like, this was out of the norm. She notices that Brianna is clutching her stomach, and Esther is flipping through all of the possibilities in her head. I mean, could it be appendicitis, maybe? Apparently, the pain of appendicitis is so intense that it causes people to not even be able to sit up straight because they're in so much pain. Esther pulls out her phone and is about to call an ambulance, but before she can, Brianna grabs her wrist and gets up and throws up all over the floor. Shortly after, Brianna starts feeling much, much better. And Esther is wiping up the vomit, and she notices that there are small specks of red in it. She assumed they were grape skins. Maybe Brianna had gotten ill from eating too many grapes? Or maybe it was like a stomach bug? Because these are the only logical explanations of what happened, right? Too many grapes?
Mom, grape skins and blood aren't that similar. They are not that similar, Mom. I know you don't want to think that your daughter was poisoned, because who would automatically think that? But no.
Because she's in high school.
That's
it's
crazy.
Not like someone would poison her. Scarlet texts Eddie a picture of a handful of small red tablets. By the way, do you die from eating these? Because I have a plan if you do. Scarlet had given Brianna a ton of tiny red pills, telling her to take it, telling her it's going to get her high, but she has to take quite a bit of it. Eddie glances at the picture and texts back, "It's dangerous, yes, but I'm not sure how many would be lethal." You know that girl I mentioned? Brianna? I'm still trying to kill her, and the easiest way is a pill overdose, don't you think? Plus, people already know that she's depressed and shit, so nobody would get sus. But for some reason, she's got a high tolerance. Like, I gave her some of these today, and I thought that should have been enough to kill her. Scarlet carried on about her day, feeling a bit frustrated. She was less upbeat than usual. She spent all day checking in on Brianna, periodically asking her about the pills. Did you take them? Did you take them? Ding. Eddie opens his text and he could basically feel Scarlet's excitement through the screen. Brianna's ill. Those tablets I gave her might be slowly killing her.
Scarlet's 15, 16 as well?
15.
Wow.
It was
But ibuprofen. Really? You're so, oh my God. You really. So we can then assume that it's not just rumor. She obviously got transferred from her old school for a good reason. She's hella weird. That's very obvious. Everyone sees it. Um, why was she not punished for anything? I know you can't really punish somebody for acting weird, because I remember very faintly a lot of weird kids, like somewhat like her in high school. We avoid those kids. I feel bad for saying that, but not in this sense. Why? I mean, she said in the beginning she suddenly wasn't at school one day, so I would want to assume that something happened to her and she wasn't just transferred again.
ibuprofen. Yeah.
What?
She said it was working. Eddie responds, "Try doubling the dose. That should at least put him in a coma." Misgendering. Scarlet had given Brianna a handful of the ibuprofen, telling her to take it because it's going to get her high. But in reality, she was trying to kill her. This would be the first of 3 attempts on Brianna's life.
3.
So Scarlet and Eddie, they're tossing and turning in bed because it just doesn't make sense. I mean, it should have worked. That should have been enough ibuprofen. So they grab their,
I remember earlier you saying there's a new girl in the school, right?
it's Scarlet.
Right.
Yeah.
And a week
This one, does she not look kind of like a witch? I'm basically just basing it off of this and the makeup. She dresses like any other witch self-proclaimed witches that I see. But Brianna seems to have a lot of really close-knit friends. I wonder if she must have at some point mentioned Scarlet or her feeling sick and then her friends put it together like, hey, don't hang out with this girl.
later she was gone.
10 weeks.
Oh,
10 weeks.
10 weeks.
later.
She's only there for 10 weeks.
So 2.5 months.
Yeah.
And this is all unfolding within 2.5 months.
Yeah.
Like multiple attempts.
I mean, most of it starts unfolding like the minute that she meets Brianna. Not necessarily that she's trying to kill Brianna the minute she meets her, but this like weird obsession with her. I wouldn't say it's an obsession in the traditional sense. It's not like she was like, I can't, like, I need to stalk her. I need to know her movements everywhere she goes. But it is a very strange relationship she's developing.
Yeah. So the first text you mentioned, it was really odd. She's saying,
Yes.
I'm obsessed with her.
Yeah.
Okay. Like when you hear that, you assume like, oh my God, I think I'm in love.
Yeah.
Right?
But then later she gets really upset because she thinks that Brianna is prettier than her.
Jealous
So
bitch.
I was having a hard time trying to. I think later at the end of this episode, you're going to start to realize the only answer to all of this could be pure evil and transphobia. Because other than that, it's very hard to unpack everybody's motive in this.
I get it.
So just like hold on to your seats because it gets weirder. It gets more confusing. So they grab their phones from the nightstand and they text each other at night. Eddie, I want something to pour into her drink that's easy to get. Something that's odorless and is going to kill her quickly. For the next hour and a half, Eddie lays in bed researching toxic substances. He sends this. You can buy it at Tesco, the grocery store. It's very dangerous stuff. Scarlet clicks open the photo. Sodium hydroxide? lye, the stuff that you use to make soap. It would have to be consumed fast enough, though, since it's an acid. You would have to force her to drink it. Unfortunately, I can't find how fast it kills, but I think it kills pretty fast. If you were to drink lye, it would turn your entire insides into literal soap. The lye is basically an acid. It's extremely corrosive. It burns all the way down into the stomach. If you pour flaming gasoline down your throat and then swallow a 6-inch knife afterwards, that's what it would feel like to drink a lot of lye. It's
What
like
the fuck? Who volunteered to do that, to come up with that comparison?
6-inch knife afterwards, that's what it would feel like to drink a lot of lye. It's like liquid lava, fire, just going down your throat. You can feel where it is in your body because the minute it touches any part of your insides, your stomach lining, you can feel it. It's going to start dissolving you from the inside out. Scarlet thought the idea was perfect. She could just put it into Brianna's McDonald's milkshake after school. Another text comes in from Scarlet. Eddie opens it up, and this time it's a picture with a pair of scissors and a tissue with blood on it. The message reads, "I'm gonna eat human flesh." Eddie smiles. Because Scarlet and Eddie, they have a very unusual relationship. They actually started off
Clearly.
despising each other. They were 11 when they first met, so 4 years ago, and they did not get along. Eddie was a world
'Cause they're too much
kickboxing champion
alike?
for 11-year-olds for his age group, and he started training since he was like 9 years old.
Is he actually? Or-
Yeah, he actually is.
Oh.
Yeah.
Huh.
And like typically being good at any sport, it guarantees like high school popularity. But not really for Eddie. Eddie just kind of kept to himself. I mean, to the point where people thought he's like a really weird robot with a mustache. He started growing a full-blown beard when he's like 13 years old. It was a lot. But other than that, he was a top student. He did well in all his subjects. He wanted to go to university to study microbiology, and absolutely nothing would get a rise out of him. At least not at school. I mean, who knows what's going on at home, but at school, I mean, everybody said Eddie was like this emotionless robot, that he didn't even have voice inflections. He would talk like this. He would talk like this, and then this is how he responds to everything. Even if you tell him something wild, he would just respond like this. Everything is monotone. There is no emotion. This is
It's always so scary whenever really scary people with this type of mindset want to go into a very important field like microbiology. Really, I know I've taken microbiology. I know majority of the time people that take it are heading into like the health field, into a career in the health field. It's always so scary. Now wondering like if I go to class, how many of these people here are here for like the right reasons? Uh, They're all really good people, the ones that I went to class with, but you hear this type of thing so often.
his excited voice. This is his sad voice. This is his bland voice. This is his voice.
They're really emotionally detached.
You would just see him walking around with his dark coat, long hair, never talking to a single person in the hallways, just very quiet. If you were in class and the teacher has their back turned and someone throws a piece of paper at the teacher's head and they start screaming, "Who did this? You guys tell me right now who did this. I'll wait." If someone points at Eddie, even though it was not Eddie, Eddie would have zero reaction. He wouldn't say, "No, that's not me." He would just be like, "Okay."
It's kind of scary.
Yeah, he would study at school, he would study at home, play video games. He just really didn't interact with anyone except Scarlet. And Scarlet at school, she was loud. "Do you guys want to sacrifice a goat with me? I'm serious. I'm doing a blood ritual this weekend." I mean, it makes sense that these two hated each other. Scarlet saw Eddie as this weird, socially awkward kid, and Eddie saw Scarlet as this obnoxious, weird kid. They instantly had a strong distaste for one another, but they were always in the same class and in the same groups as each other. The forced proximity made them see each other in a different light. They realized, you know what, maybe we do have a lot in common.
They do.
Scarlet started texting Eddie almost daily. "I'm gonna stab your grandma. I'm gonna f your cat." That's just how Scarlet talked, apparently. Eddie didn't seem to mind it. In fact, he seemed to at least like it to a degree or thought it was humorous. Like it was a side of Scarlet that only Eddie got to see. Interestingly enough, Scarlet had a boyfriend. That's not Eddie. And Eddie has a different girl that he's interested in, both of which have no idea about these text messages or their dark interests. They do not talk like this with their romantic interests. Scarlett's boyfriend seemed completely
Two-Face.
in the dark about all the disturbing things that she was into. It said that the two of them actually seemed like every other normal high school couple. They would go to the park and go on walks and take cute Polaroid pictures with each other. And from the outside, they seemed somewhat normal and stable. Except for the fact that Scarlet carved her boyfriend's name into her arm with a knife. So, yeah, I mean, like I said, I don't know really how to dissect these people, but Scarlet is kind of crazy. Scarlet describes Eddie as trustworthy, a sociopath, someone who doesn't have any emotions or at all, has a good sense of humor though, very, very smart, like genius level smart, but socially very awkward, gets anxious a lot. Eddie said about Scarlet that he's not really sure how to describe her personality, but she's definitely not normal. So it looks like they're both on the same page. Neither of their descriptions are glowing reviews of one another. I mean, not really the kind of comments that you would want to hear about yourself. Socially awkward, sociopath, not a normal person. I don't know how to describe her. But Scarlet and Eddie, they thought it worked for them. They just had like the right amount of understanding. They had just the right amount of respect for one another, and it worked. Eddie opens up a message to a text that he got from Scarlet. This one he'd been anticipating. He asked Scarlet for advice on how to ask his crush out. And he felt like, I'm just so awkward. I'm so nervous. I mean, I just need help. He wouldn't even be able to start a conversation with the girl of his interest. Eddie opens up the message and Scarlet texted him. Eddie, there's nothing to worry about. She's not going to think you're weird. Show her that you care for her and give her support. She's going to know and she's going to rely on you and open up to you. He said, well, what if she replies? What do I do then? I mean, I've been trying this for the whole day. Scarlet reassures him that it's all going to be fine. But he knows it's not fine. There's another boy that literally likes the same girl as him, Mark. And if Mark gets to her first, then what is he going to do then? Eddie starts sharing his anxieties with Scarlet, and she reassures him, we could just kill Mark. We could just kill him. Eddie considers it for a moment, and then he responds, you mean cut his heart out and then cook it and feed it to your dog?
That's not what she said.
Yeah.
Okay.
Eddie would text Scarlet, the more you think about killing, the more likely you are to kill someone. I mean, it's hard to say if they knew the other party was exaggerating or lying. One would imagine that the lies were so obvious that there would be no question about it. But maybe they believed each other's lies because it made...
You just said it themselves. They have a mutual understanding of each other. So whether they're joking about it or not, they themselves would know that
made it
answer.
easier to believe their own. Eddie and Scarlet, they had their own idea of ideal selves, like visions of who they wanted to be, and they start projecting it onto each other. So the way that I see it, let me try to simplify it, is let's say there's two people. One of them is studying to be a doctor. That's what they go around telling everybody. But you know that they're never actually going to get there because they're not actually ever studying. They're just so busy telling everyone they're studying. They're just saying that they are. And it's like they're more married to the idea of getting the respect of being a doctor or getting the respect of studying to be a doctor than actually wanting to be a doctor. That's one person. The other person is starting their own business, but they have done nothing, like no real work to do anything. All they do is post on Instagram about all their meetings. But what meetings? There's no business. Now, if either of them talk to anybody who knows them, it's going to be the same thing. They're not going to be treated as a doctor or a business owner because they're not one. I mean, they're so far from it. They haven't even taken the first step to become one. But when they're around each other, the wannabe doctor pretends to be a real doctor. That they've already studied, they've already become a doctor, they're already licensed, they're practicing. The wannabe business owner pretends to be a Fortune 500 CEO. And that's how they talk to each other in this kind of bizarre, I don't want to say fantasy land because that makes it seem like they are detached from reality and don't know what they're doing. But they're not, but it is fantastical. It's definitely a fantasy. They talk about how stressed they are and all of these things, but it's all fake. Scarlet always wanted to be treated like an evil, cold-blooded killer, so she texted Eddie, I already killed 2 people, you know? But who knows? It could be more. Scarlet told Eddie she was having these weird dreams. Maybe they're more like hallucinations. Perhaps they were flashbacks of what really happened. She told him, I hallucinated that I was covered in blood and it was this guy named Landon, and I was covered in Landon's blood, and I could hear him scream and choking on his own blood, and I just saw myself standing over his body with the knife in my hand, smiling and holding the knife. She would later tell Eddie that she thought she did in fact kill a man named Landon, and these were not just hallucinations that her brain made up. Scarlet would text, "Do you know what the red rooms are?" Scarlet told Eddie that she downloaded Tor and started going on the dark web. She said she's a huge fan of the red rooms. Which, side note, if you don't know what the red rooms are, it's like a torture rooms, allegedly, on the dark web, where you can pay money and someone will kidnap someone and torture them while live streaming it. It's like a snuff film in the making. Someone is going to die. There will be bloodshed. It's really gruesome. And it's also questionable if they exist. So she texts him, "I love watching torture videos, real ones on the dark web. I've liked this stuff for a while, and I'm just happy because I finally found a good red room." No, okay, side note, by the way, you know how I said I don't know if these exist?
Whether that was she specifically talking about exists or not, I don't know. I'm never in the 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 dark side of the web, but there are versions that do exist. That's nothing to question about. I wonder if she's ever gonna get into how they grew up, because that's always a way to start. How did you come to be the person that you are now?
These types of videos do in fact exist. I think the red room concept is unclear. Like if you can live stream it and actually bet Bitcoin or whatever cryptocurrency to make acts of torture happen, that is what is debated. The existence of snuff films and stuff like that, I mean, those are very much true.
Real.
There was one video that was recently making its rounds, not even on the dark web, a video of a cartel who had amputated a victim's arms and had skinned his entire face off while he was still very much alive. And they continued to torture him in various ways while he was screaming, and they were listening, jamming out to music, is how it's described.
What's even more scary is that, yeah, there's so many of them that there's like a handful that are bound to surface into more public domains, such as YouTube. I remember not much details, but just as a kid on YouTube, other kids talking about it. I don't know how they got a hold of it. That's very concerning in itself, but it just comes across you at some point on YouTube, and you can just find those videos if you really look for them. But I don't think I have to tell you not to, because it's very traumatizing. Why would you want
That
to see
wasn't even
that?
on the dark web. So perhaps she did find some of these videos. I just don't know if it was in a red room setting. And in return, Scarlet let Eddie be whoever he dreamed of being, which is someone who absolutely did not care and was willing to kill anyone because why not? He's just bored. Eddie would show off his knife collection and these throwing stars that he had, like, you know, those metal star-shaped daggers
Yeah.
that you can throw at things and walls.
Yeah.
He was so desperate to be bad, and Scarlet just accepted it. People would later comment that it's so interesting that they found each other, you know, in this small town.
Destiny.
Because in the small town of Birchwood, there's only 10,000 residents, and one of them would go by the Instagram handle, the Cum Lord.
Ew.
He was on Instagram, the Cum Lord, in reaching out to a high schooler named Eric. The Instagram account is reaching out to Eric, asking him if he wants to meet in the woods at the local park, Linear Park. They're like,
Who's the cum lord?
it's like an anonymous Instagram account in Birchwood.
Oh.
It's like a fake account, and he's reaching out to a high school boy named Eric and is like, meet me in the woods. It'll be fun. Trust me.
And Eric is just a random kid.
Same school, random kid. The Instagram account is promising Eric whatever he wants in exchange for showing up to the park. Eric opens up the DMs from the Cum Lord. He doesn't know who this person is, and he's like, this is sketch. He blocks the Cum Lord. And Scarlet and Eddie are pissed. They're like, damn it, they lost him. So Scarlet and Eddie had been going through the trouble of creating a fake Instagram account called the Cum Lord, and they were trying to specifically lure Eric out, all because they wanted to petrol bomb him.
What is that?
It's like a Molotov
What?
cocktail, which is
Yeah.
essentially a DIY firebomb. It's really dangerous. Typically, it consists of highly flammable liquid inside of a glass
Oh.
bottle. You stick a flammable fabric shoved into the opening, someone lights the fabric on fire, and you have an undetermined random amount of time for the fire to reach the inside. Typically, nothing happens, but we don't know, because there's no oxygen in the bottle. But once someone throws it, the fuel, the fire, it goes flying, splattering everywhere, and it's really dangerous.
Mm.
They wanted to throw a Molotov cocktail at a high school boy named Eric, a fellow
Why?
student.
What did he
They just
do?
didn't like him. But they can't ask him to come to the woods themselves because he knows they don't like him. So why would he go to the woods with them? So they created this fake Instagram account to lure him out into the woods so that they could Molotov cocktail him. They wanted to record the whole thing and post it on every social media platform because they thought it'd be hilarious.
Y'all are so fucking stupid. There's no there's no sense in their universe. Because you get a message in high school, a DM on Instagram, like, hey, come meet me in the woods by someone named the Cum Lord. What the fuck?
But Eric did not bite their bait. He blocked
'Cause
them.
Eric has brains.
Scarlet and Eddie, they're really disappointed. And honestly, they're very upset because this is the fourth person they tried to kill. And it fell through again. There were 3 people before Eric, and there would be one more after Eric on their kill list.
So, Brianna.
October 2022, Scarlet and Eddie made a kill list, a list of names of future victims, people they wanted to kill. There was no particularly good reason anybody was on that list. I mean, not that there ever is an appropriate reason, but it could be something as trivial as liking the same girl as Eddie. Remember how
People they're
Eddie had a
jealous
crush?
of.
Well, that
Yeah,
guy.
I was surprised. I was like, what? Why Eric? Like, what has Eric done? I'm surprised, not that it makes it any better or that his name should have been on there instead of Eric, but I'm surprised they wouldn't have put Mark on that list since he supposedly likes the same girl that Eddie does. But for reasons for these, they're just, once again, just projecting. They're haters. They're so pathetic. They're so miserable in their lives. Like,
Mark liked the
there's
same
no
girl.
reason.
For that, he was on the kill list. They plan to chop off Mark's Achilles heel, chop his tongue off so that he can't run or talk. Yeah, they wanted to torture him, and Scarlett had an idea. She said, if we kill Mark, can I keep some things? I'm going to keep a couple of his teeth and his eyeballs. I don't know how I would cut out the eye, though, without damaging it, or get the teeth out, but we should torture him before killing him. Sometimes their target on the kill list changed, but the conversations were always the same. Eddie would try to bring Scarlett back down to earth. We can't just go and kill everyone that you hate for the sake of it, okay? One guy was on Scarlett's kill list because he almost got her expelled from school. Scarlett wanted him dead, gone, right now. Eddie tried to reason with her over text, calm her down. He responded, well, you can't just do that. First, you have to lure him out. Depending on what excuse you use, it can change the plan. Like maybe you use drugs to overdose him. If you said you were going to give him some drugs, you could drug him. Or if you invite him someplace, you could always assassinate him. Well, I just want him dead, ASAP. Then you distract him, Scarlett, and I'll go from behind with my knife and then I'll stab him in his neck. Scarlett texts, okay, fine. Promise that you're definitely 100% gonna go through with this. Scarlett waits for Eddie's text. Ding. If the plan and timing are good, then yeah, I will. The two would even search for rope on Amazon to strangle victims with, but they concluded that $17 for rope was way too expensive. Scarlett would keep brainstorming without the rope. She would write down on a piece of paper, okay, give them alcohol with sleeping pills, slit throat, dismember body, place pieces in black trash bags, bury bags 7 feet underground, bones included in the bags. Yeah. That was her initial plan that she wrote down on a piece of paper. And the kill list was ever rotating. Scarlett was in charge of picking the victim, and her mind changed every day on who, quote, deserved it. She would pick some random, small, trivial, arbitrary reason that someone needed to die, and then it was settled. She and Eddie would go about planning or fantasizing about the murder.
How long was it from, like, when did they start?
October to February, so like a month. February 11th.
So like 3 to 4 months.
Yeah.
Wow.
Now, one day in January, Scarlett texts Eddie, and she's complaining. I think Brianna is prettier than me. Eddie responds, but
She
is it a
is.
feminine boy? he uses a shortened version of that, or a insert transphobic slur. He followed it up with, I mean, prettier than you, but it's a boy. Scarlet told Eddie that she was getting nervous and stuff around Brianna, and she wasn't sure why. She said, she's really different. I'm kind of obsessed. Eddie responds, tell me how you feel when
Because she's everything that you want to be externally, but what you want to portray yourself to be in your fake reality, but she's actually living that in the actual world, the actual reality. So you're jealous of her, you're obsessed with her personality. So you're jealous, you kill her, because that's the right way to do it instead of actually getting help for yourself and actually trying to be a good, decent person like Brianna.
you interact with it. Scarlet said, well, I get nervous and stuff. Eddie takes a moment to think before responding, and he says, I don't think you're necessarily in love. I think you're more curious and intrigued by its unnatural nature. You find it interesting because the majority of people aren't trans. It's like you're going to a funeral and one person is wearing pink. You're going to be fascinated by their difference. And somehow, Scarlett's jealousy, fascination, obsession for Brianna, and Eddie's
Out the window.
transphobia combined would make Brianna their next target. Scarlet made plans to meet up with Brianna so that they could kill her. At 11:25 a.m., Scarlet texts Eddie, I'm so pissed. Brianna just last minute said that she can't come because of her stepdad's birthday dinner. Let's kill her tomorrow instead at 6 p.m. I don't want to wait. I just want her to die so badly. I want it done ASAP. I want to see pure horror on her face and I want to hear her scream. Eddie texts back, well, I can't. Not tomorrow. Because it's a school night.
So Brianna just seems so, these two, they're very much the same, right? But on the exterior, one just seems so much more loud and blatant with it. And the other one seems just more keeping that internally and just portraying their weirdness in a different way. But I'm just trying to remember back in my high school days. I've never had someone super weird to the point where they were like, hey, I'm going to sacrifice a goat. I'm going to have a blood ritual. Never to that extent. Or maybe these teachers just didn't care because just how blatant she seems. And surely, if she was transferred for actually poisoning a classroom of hers, then the new school would have maybe heard of that. Maybe. And they just let her roam around like a normal student, like a whole new environment is just suddenly going to change her mindset. She doesn't get any help at all, nothing professional.
Scarlet was annoyed with him, but she texted him a firm date, February 11th, 2023. Mark it on the calendar. It's going to be February 11th. We're going to kill Brianna. Have you ever seen the movie Sweeney Todd? It's like a musical,
Heard
okay?
it,
But the plot of
but
it is a
not seen
bit
it.
violent. It's a violent musical. It's about a man named Sweeney Todd, who is played by Johnny Depp. He shows up at a pie shop in London. The pie shop is called Mrs. Lovett's Pie Shop, but most locals in London, they call it the worst pies in London. They're disgusting. They've got flies flying all around them. But when Sweeney Todd walks in, the pie shop owner instantly recognizes him. You're the barber, aren't you? Benjamin Barker? You have to be. Benjamin Barker was the local barber who was exiled from London. So one of the most powerful judges in London decided that he wanted Benjamin Barker's beautiful wife. So he came up with this random excuse to have Benjamin Barker banished from London. And once he was gone, his wife was all alone taking care of their 1-year-old daughter. The judge invites her to a party, essays her. She ends up self-exiting because of all the trauma she endures. And the judge formally adopts the barber's daughter.
What kind of movie is this?
It's a musical.
See, I've heard the movie or the musical. I've never seen it. I did not know it was that dark. Why did I think it was a? It's the producer he works with a lot with. I'll think of it. And no, I'm mistaking it for another movie. I'm mistaking it for Beetlejuice. Never mind.
Yeah.
What?
And now Benjamin Barker, the barber, is back to get his revenge. Basically, he's going to kill anybody who stands in his way. He kills his victims with the barber's razor, slitting their throats, and he gives Mrs. Lovett, the pie shop owner, all the bodies to bake into her pies. It's cheaper than purchasing real meat for her meat pies, so she takes it, and apparently it's a hit because everybody starts showing up to the bakery for more pies. They can't get enough of these human meat pies. The meaning of the musical is basically dwelling on a dark past and horrible injustices and seeking revenge for those horrible injustices are ultimately going to destroy you and everyone around you. At the end, Sweeney Todd, the barber, he ends up dying. But that's not the moral of the message that Scarlet cared about, okay? She didn't even care about the music. She was obsessed with the killing scenes. There's about 11 throats that get slit in the movie, and she texted a friend saying, he kills people with one of the sharpest blades in the world. One slit, slice things good, very deep. It's really good, and dark, and gory, and romantic. I'm watching it for the 9,000th time. You should watch it too. She would post Sweeney Todd clips to her social media accounts, and mainly they were just compilations of the kill scenes. She said it was her favorite movie of all time. If she did indeed watch it 9,000 times, the movie runtime is about an hour and 59 minutes. If she watched it 9,000 times, she spent about 18,000 hours watching the movie, or 2 full years of her 15-year life. And normally I'd say 9,000 times sounds like she's just exaggerating, right? But she seems like she would have watched it 9,000 times.
I wouldn't doubt it.
Yeah. Or at least a few hundred times. We're not exactly sure how many times she rewatched it, but we do know that rewatching Sweeney Todd was what Scarlet wanted to do the night of February 10th, the night before Brianna's murder. She texted Eddie, I'm excited as f. Eddie texts back, why? Oh yeah, I forgot. She texts, I'm watching Sweeney Todd again. You should watch it. I can't watch romantic movies.
See, I don't even know which one's more chilling. The one that say that I'm so excited, or he's saying that, I forgot.
They're both at the same level for me.
What?
He's like, I can't watch romantic movies. Well, make sure you wear clothes and shoes that you can run in, just in case. What knife are you bringing tomorrow? The hunting knife that I showed you in person? You should bring a knife too if you want to stab her, because I'm not going to throw my knife at you. After those text messages, Scarlet picked up one of her journals to write in. If you were to flip open a page and take a quick glance, I mean, it looks like any other high school girl's journal. Pink and blue gel ink with those little squiggly lines and hearts doodled all over the page. Scarlet's handwriting is very small and squished together, so if you just glanced at the journal from maybe a few desks down or from across the classroom, you would have no idea what she wrote. But her little journal would have some of the most atrocious things in there. If you flip the journal to a random page, you might land on Jeffrey Dahmer's page. And just to give you a refresher, Jeffrey Dahmer was a serial killer, cannibal, necrophiliac, meaning that he likes to have relations with deceased bodies. He was probably most widely known for, obviously, the heinous nature of his crimes and the fact that he chose a lot of POC victims, but he also wanted to create love zombies. He would kidnap victims, drill holes into their skulls while they're still alive, and try to pour acid into their brains because he wanted their brains to be turned off, that he could control them just physically, and they would still be alive.
Something else that's super bizarre that seemed to be really, I don't want to say popular because I don't want to generalize it to a whole population, but especially say when the movie came out, I'm sure you guys know the weird fascination and obsession with serial killers. Not just the pure interest of it, like what did they do? Why did they do that? They're a monster. Good thing they're not on this earth anymore, or good thing they got caught, and prayers to the victims. But then there's other people that are like Scarlet, and just super obsessed with killers like that. Why?
Where he could do whatever he wanted with them. He was trying to create zombies,
love
zombies. He was also very keen on keeping trophies. The police found 5 severed heads in his kitchen. But Scarlet had a page in her journal in purple and pink gel pen that read, Jeffrey Lionel Dahmer, squiggle, squiggle. First line, gay, intelligent, very, very, killed 17 boys and men, organized, disorganized serial killer, not sociable, sad that everybody leaves him, usually dispose of bodies in a disorganized, badly way. Next line reads, dismembered bodies, smart. Alcoholic, smoked weed. When he's close to being caught, he usually panics and makes up a strange but smart and believable story to prove his innocence. Disorganized, made 14-year-old his own zombie with a drill, etc. High IQ, 145, genius level. Side note, his IQ was not 145. Most reports say that it was closer to 120, so definitely not 145. But I digress. The page continues. Loved getting roadkill and dissecting it. Lonely. Wants love, attention, affection from other men, but never works out and they end up dead. Arrested. Got beaten to death in prison. Last words? She never wrote them, but allegedly they were, I don't care if I live or die. Go ahead and kill me. If you flip to another random page in her journal, you'll find John Wayne Gacy's page, The Clown Killer. He had at least 33 victims, and he was a sadist. On his page, Scarlet wrote, 33 victims, killed victims by strangling. Last words, kiss my ass. But her favorite was Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker, the one that took the eyeballs. She wrote on his page, The Night Stalker, squiggle, squiggle. Characteristics, robberies, mutilation. Richard Ramirez quotes, heart. Big deal. Death comes with the territory. See you in Disneyland. Which is what he said when he was sentenced to death. There's a list of all the quotes that he said that she apparently really liked. You maggots make me sick. I will be avenged. Lucifer dwells within us all. I've killed 20 people, man. I love all that blood. I love Satan. You know who I am, don't you? I'm the one they're writing about in the newspapers and on TV. Richard Ramirez was her favorite. He had over 15 victims and he would drink his victims' blood by blending them up in his juicer. He would write messages on the walls and pentagrams to taunt the police. He's the one that gouged out the victims' eyeballs and put them in his jewelry box as a trophy. Scarlet would tell everybody around her. I could talk about him for at least 2 hours, including like quotes and dates and stuff. But Scarlet felt like there was a fundamental difference between them and her.
Talk about it to yourself and the demons in your head and the insane asylum. Why is she still out in public around all these other kids?
Unlike those serial killers, she was going to get away with it. The day after a teenage girl is found dead at the local park, Scarlet's life starts spiraling out of control. Scarlet is staring down at her phone and she has a new message from a stranger on Facebook. It read, "Is that your friend who got hurt? Who was with you yesterday at the park? I saw you at Linear Park. Your friend's face looks familiar." Scarlet could feel the blood pumping in her ears. Who could have seen her together with Brianna at the park? She tried to think of all the people they came across. Was it that full-grown man playing hide and seek? It was John and Christina's turn to hide. Their kids started counting and they're playing hide and seek. It's a classic. I mean, it's winter time, so the air is crisp and the kids are just getting their energy out. John wanted to stay close by, but still kind of hide. So he stood behind the trunk of a tree and he would poke his head out so that he could keep an eye on his kids. From his hiding spot, John looks around for his kids and he's watching them, but he sees someone in his peripheral vision. He turns his head and he sees a young teen girl and the other. He couldn't really make out if Eddie was a boy or a grown man. I mean, something in the way that Eddie carried himself just gave off like man-child energy.
Yeah, I see.
John watches them as they start climbing up the steps towards the trail, towards John. Their heads are swiveling back and forth. It's like they're scanning for someone or looking for someone. It feels like they're also playing a game of hide and seek. It seems like they're looking for John. So John pulls his gaze from them and glances back at his own children. And when he turns back around in the direction that they were, they have now reached the top of the stairs and are now eye level with him. He makes eye contact with the both of them. The boy looks away, but the girl keeps staring. She just had these deep, intense blue eyes that he would never forget. There's just something very dark about them. John feels unsettled, so he calls for his kids and they start making their way down the stairs and off the trail. And then they see another teenager, a young girl on her phone sitting on a bench. He can't help but notice that she had this beautiful waist-length red hair that made her look like this real-life mermaid, like Ariel. And she had this very light presence compared to the other two. But it seems like the three were friends. It looks like they were at the park together. But the energy was just so off. Earlier that day, before John found them while playing hide and seek, before he stared into Scarlet's eyes, Eddie and Scarlet had 2 bottles in their hands. Eddie had a Coca-Cola bottle, Scarlet had a Dr. Pepper, and they're checking out at the Sainsbury supermarket. They were going to go over the plan one last time. Get her to the park, isolate her. That's the plan, right? And when Scarlet says the code word, Eddie's gonna take out his knife and slit Brianna's throat. Does that sound good? Sure. And don't forget, Eddie, the code word is gay. Now, Brianna is starting to get a weird feeling about all of this. Probably not a dangerous feeling because this is her friend, but it was odd. It's frustrating. It's weird. I mean, Brianna agreed to meet up with Scarlet at the park to do for the first time. She was more peer pressured into it, so she was really nervous about it. I mean, for one, they're going to do the first time. And two, Scarlet said she was bringing a guy friend that Brianna had never met. Brianna was socially anxious, so she didn't know how she felt about it. And maybe it was the fact that they were planning on doing drugs. Scarlet was having Brianna jump through a million hoops that day. There's a bus stop less than 3 minutes away from Brianna's house that would have a bus taking the same route. But no, Scarlet told her absolutely not. You cannot go to that one. You have to walk over a mile, walk 25 minutes to the Birchwood train station and get on a bus from there.
Why do you think she made her do that?
Why?
Okay, so some netizens suspect it was a power thing. Other netizens think that she's so dumb that she thought this was like a way that killers go about misleading the police.
Yeah, that's what I thought maybe her intention was. Like, no, you can't, because the cameras are going to catch you or they're going to track you. And so you have to go this and this route. I'm like, I don't know.
Okay, I can see that. Yeah. Because she's like analyzing all the killers and she thinks she's doing something. Okay.
But she's not, because there's CCTV footage everywhere.
Yeah.
So it really
Exactly.
doesn't matter what bus stop that she gets on. It's not like there was a CCTV dead zone at that bus station.
Yeah.
Now, Scarlet tells her, good. There will probably be not as many people, and get on bus number 28 and ask for a child single ticket to Colchith Library. Brianna wasn't even used to catching a bus on her own. She was way too anxious for that. This is all so strange, but maybe there's a logical reason behind it.
I don't know, honestly. Like, I'm not saying this in order to blame Brianna or anything. That's not my intention at all. But that is just so weird. That's so sketchy. Like, you meet this new girl who you claim to be a friend, who you believe to be a friend, and your plan is to do cocaine for the first time. Trying to see it from her mindset where she's socially awkward, she's constantly being bullied, so she's not always in the right headspace. So, but I don't know. It's just she seemed already super offset. It's just so weird. I don't know.
Because Scarlet has been nothing but pretty kind to Brianna. So she went according to the plan. She walked 25 minutes to the Birchwood train station, waited another 30 minutes for the bus to arrive, bus 28. That's the one that she gets on. Then when the bus came, Brianna gave the driver her ticket and boarded. The bus ride itself was only 15 minutes long, and Brianna would watch it pass her house on the way. Then at 1:53 p.m., Brianna meets Scarlet and Eddie at the bus stop. It's Brianna's first time meeting Eddie, and maybe she got a strange energy from him. Or maybe she thought that Eddie was shy too, because Eddie distances himself from the two girls. He keeps walking further away from them. If a stranger walked past, they could possibly, reasonably guess that Eddie was not part of the group. It was like 50-50. He's walking so far behind them. I mean, it's just weird. It's more like he's stalking them. He's like walking behind. Scarlet seemed too distracted to try and calm down Brianna's uneasiness. I mean, everything would have to go according to plan. Scarlet even texted Eddie the itinerary for that day, the schedule. It was handwritten on a piece of paper, and at the top it read, "The Murder Plan." Time, Saturday, February 11th, 2023. Squiggle. Victim, squiggle. Brianna Jai. Plan, squiggle. Meet Eddie at Wooden Post at 1 p.m. Check. Walk down to the library at the bus stop. Done. Wait till Brianna gets off the bus. Check and done. Then the three of us will walk to Linear Park. Currently in progress. Once they get to the park, it does seem like the three of them feel a bit more comfortable with each other. They would periodically joke around, talking and laughing with one another. But Eddie seemed to resort back to hanging back and doing his own thing. Like, he might laugh for 2 seconds and then he would go back and do his own thing. And now they just had to focus on the next best step. Go to the pipe or the tunnel area, a secluded area in the park that they had scoped out before this murder. So far, that part's not going well. Brianna's starting to feel off about the whole thing, and they could sense it. They were supposed to meet up with a drug dealer to purchase the But Scarlet and Eddie just seemed like they were thinking about something else. They were doing something else. I mean, the whole energy was off. Brianna Snapchatted Scarlet while they're together. Girl, I'm gonna wait where I am right here until we have the drugs. I'm way too anxious for this. This is not going according to plan. Scarlet starts going on her phone and is furiously typing, "Sorry, it's Nathan, the drug dealer," insinuating that she's having a very intense conversation with Nathan, the drug dealer, likely to ask, "Where are you, Nathan? Where are the drugs?" But she's not texting anyone. She's just texting herself. And Brianna is not buying it. I mean, it's so obvious that Scarlet is messaging herself. At 2:30 p.m., Brianna sends a message to her best friend, Amelia, who lives 3 hours away.
What do you mean she's messaging herself?
She's like, "Oh,
She can
this is what
message
Nathan
herself.
said." And she's just
Oh,
like
she's fake texting.
fake texting
Yes.
herself. Yeah. There is no drug dealer. Who is Nathan? There is no Nathan. This is all just to lure her out to the park. And she's catching on. So Brianna texts her best friend, Amelia, who lives 3 hours away, and says, "Scarlet is so weird. Girl, I think she's pretending to have a dealer." Not going according to plan. At 3:01 p.m., Scarlet texts Nathan, the supplier, just the word, "hurry." And then she looks at Eddie and she coughs. Eddie knew exactly what that cough meant because along with the murder plan note, the picture of the little handwritten note of the murder plan, Scarlet had texted Eddie, reconfirming everything just to make sure he didn't forget anything. She said, "Grab onto Brianna and slit her throat. When she starts to fall, stab her in the back and then pass me the knife. I want to stab her at least once, even if she's
Oh my God.
already dead, just because it's fun, LOL." Eddie responds, "Okay, then let's have 2 code words. One for me getting the knife ready, and then the other one for me stabbing." Scarlet says, "Okay, for getting the knife ready, I will look at you and I'll cough. And then for stabbing, the code word will be gay." Before Brianna could even register what Scarlet said, because why did she just say gay? What just happened? Eddie throws her onto the floor and stabs her 3 to 4 times. They're in like a semi-secluded area in the woods. He looks down, there's blood everywhere, he starts to panic. Scarlet snatches the knife from him and just goes into a stabbing frenzy. Brianna raises her arm to try and defend herself, but the knife slashes through the tendons in her hands and her wrist, and at any moment, Scarlet can stop. She can drop the knife. Instead, she plunges it down, fracturing Brianna's wrist bones. She brings the knife all the way back up and back down again, and the stab passes through Brianna's upper arm. She could stop now. Brianna has been nothing but kind and compassionate to her. This was her friend who refused to believe murders, who was on her side. Instead, Scarlet plunges the knife back down, leaving Brianna's wrist gaping open. And at this point, Brianna manages to escape from their grip. She gets up and she starts running up the stairs in front of them. She's trying to get to safety, flag someone down, but she makes it halfway up the flight of stairs when she's pulled onto the ground again. And at any point, they could have stopped. But they stabbed Brianna 28 times, 14 to her head and neck, 14 to her chest, back and side. She was stabbed with enough force to fracture her ribs, vertebrae, and sternum. One stab would reach a depth of at least 5 inches, and it penetrated into her heart. Her throat and lungs had been punctured. Her jugular vein and neck arteries were both severed. These are the 2 biggest veins and arteries in the body, and if severed, you could die within 5 minutes, and that's being generous. Many of the stab wounds had caused damage to her bones, including her chest bones, her ribs. They would require considerable force to inflict those levels of injury. And because of the location of where she was in the park, it took police and paramedics 20 minutes to get to her. There was no direct path. And she was pronounced dead at 4:02 p.m., 45 minutes after the Vises, the couple, stumbled upon her. The couple watching
so the
the dog.
couple were the one that called the police.
Yeah.
And the couple saw them.
Yeah, and gave their description and everything, but they had already run off. Now, in the US, there is a 40% chance that you can get away with murder. The UK has just reported an abysmally low rate of solved crimes. We don't have the exact reputable stats for murder clearance rates, but we can imagine perhaps it's similar to the US, which means all Scarlet and Eddie had to do was make sure that they don't end up in that 60%. After they take off running from the park, Scarlet and Eddie both took separate routes to get home. Eddie hops on a bus, but he would make a few crucial errors in the first 24 hours, or really even like the first hour. When Eddie boards the bus, he looks down and he notices blood on his hands. He had already tucked away his bloody knife, but the hands are stained red. He's seen on bus CCTV wiping his hands. It's kind of an odd movement. Then he starts pulling down his sleeves to hide his hands from the view. Eddie gets home at around 4 p.m. and he patiently waits for the right moment to text Scarlet. By this point, Scarlet has already been home. Instead of taking a bus, Scarlet ran all the way back to her house since she lives pretty close to the park, and she had a few things that were top priority. Scarlet took Brianna's phone. She uses Brianna's phone to text herself. Then Scarlet uses her own phone to delete a Snapchat thread and then walks over to a nearby drain on the way back to her house and tosses Brianna's pink phone in. Very quickly, she was home, safe and sound, playing Brianna's favorite video game. It said that Scarlet doesn't even really like this game that much.
Roblox? Minecraft.
It seems
not
like
Roblox.
both Eddie and Scarlett's family did not notice anything odd or alarming about them, which I think is more odd and alarming.
Exactly what I was just gonna say. We did not get into anything of their household or why they were to be this the people that they are to be. I would, of course, the cops doesn't know what we know, the information we were given. So it's easy to be like, oh, it's so obvious it was them. Even if they tried their best to clean up afterwards, they would be caught because it's just so obviously them. But without giving all the information we were given, who knows? It's just so much just happened. Usually, I don't really get emotional. I get really sick and disgusted whenever told about the actual steps of the crime. But for some reason, I just got so emotional just hearing about the stabbing and stuff.
But if we analyze their phone and internet activity, there is a lot going on. Ding! Scarlet would get a text message on her phone from Eddie. So, Scarlet, how's your cat? Good, LOL. How's yours? It keeps trying to purr. Aw. An hour later, Scarlet texts Eddie again. My brother just told me not to go near Lanier Park because a woman just got stabbed there.
I'm so sorry. Do they both actually have a cat?
Yeah, they do.
Oh, okay.
I think so.
Does
So
she
they
have a
are talking about
brother?
their cats.
Yes, but I wonder if it's code word for something or
That's
Right.
what I kind of
if
thought for a
if
second.
that's their alibi to just be like, no, I was at home playing with my cat. Eddie texts back, Jesus, really? Yeah, they said it's murder. Holy crap. The text messages read like two high schoolers just finding out some local news. They're screenshotting, linking news articles. First news article is woman still alive and taken to hospital via helicopter. Then at 7:18, another news article is shared in the messages. The headline reads, police confirm death of woman found with serious injuries at park. Scarlet asks Eddie, when do you think they'll find out a name? At the same time, Scarlet's phone is making searches for Brianna on Snapchat. She's watching her old videos. But by 11 p.m. that night, a few very interesting, very fascinating conversations are had between Scarlet and Eddie. Eddie texts Scarlet, do you know what my favorite quote is? If you wish for peace, prepare for war. The quote is originally in Latin. Essentially, it means you have to be prepared to fight a war when necessary because that's the only way that you can achieve peace. Scarlet texts back at 11:11 p.m. Do you have any anxiety about getting caught? Probably. You're not going to get caught. Don't worry, the police are shit here. I haven't been caught yet, and I'm a lot less smarter than you. Yeah.
Just as I was going to pause and be like, what happened to her? Because all we've been told so far is that one day she was in school and then one day she's not. We see him obviously awaiting trial. If she like just ran away and no one knows where she's at and that's why she just disappeared and she's not awaiting trial along with Eddie and that's why she keeps getting away with things, no, I don't know. There's so many things that can happen. But just with majority of these Rotten Mango videos, I feel like I'm not gonna feel some form of justice being served. Please. It's been 11 months. She said that the sentencing wasn't told yet. It's been 11 months though. I wonder if afterwards I'd be able to look it up and see if something happened.
What?
Phone records show the two of them reading any and all press reports on the killing that they could find. And all Scarlet could do was look up articles about the stabbing at the park, send them to her friends, text her friends about the stabbing in the park. There was just one friend that she did not message that night, but was always on the back of her mind. February 12th, the day after, Scarlet texts Brianna. Girl, is everything okay? Some teenage girl got killed near Lunaire Park. It's on the news everywhere. And why did you ditch us for some random guy from Manchester? Like, what? That is so up.
So you're saying she didn't text her the first day?
No.
She texted everyone else.
And then texted her the second day, and she's creating this alibi because she thinks, oh, wait, maybe Brianna's family knows that she's going to come meet with me.
Yeah.
So now I need to make it seem like she ditched us for some guy from Manchester. Throw the police off.
And literally someone saw her.
Yes. And not only that, it's like, I don't understand the whole cat thing. So she's like texting about the cat almost as if she's creating this alibi. Like, we're both home with our cats. And then later that night, she's like, are you anxious about getting caught?
Yeah.
So it's like, does she think that the police are going to check her phone, or does she not think that they're going to check her phone?
Exactly.
Meanwhile, Brianna's sister Alicia is home when she hears sirens going off in the distance. This is Brianna's
Oh my God, that scared me. I thought that was here.
older sister. And the sirens are getting progressively louder. But instead of passing through and fading off again, it sounds like they're getting closer and closer and closer. And then suddenly it stops. And then there's a knock at the door. Alicia swings open the door and she sees two police officers standing there. They look disturbed. They look shaken up. Can I help you? Is everything all right? The police ask if they can come inside. I mean, sure. What's going on though? Is my mom okay? We need to speak with the whole family. Is there anybody else in the house? Yeah, my sister Brianna's in her room. The two officers glance at each other and they look very uneasy about that comment. Are you sure your sister's in her room? Alicia was certain. Like, Brianna is almost always home. She's a homebody. But just to get some peace of mind, she's like, yeah, she's always home. But I can go check. She goes to check. She knocks on her door and there's no response. And she feels like this anxiety inching up just bigger and bigger, and she flings open the door and Brianna wasn't home. And she wouldn't be coming home because her life was cruelly taken from her.
How haunting is that? You see, you have a sibling who, like, you think never leaves their room. So at times you don't even bother checking because you're like, oh, they're always in there. Why even check? They're always at home. And they're not.
It took the police less than 24 hours to find who they were looking for. They took witness statements, collected local doorbell and dashcam footage, CCTV footage. The last people to be seen with Brianna were Scarlet and Eddie. They both fled the park after she was found stabbed. I mean, it's very obvious that they were involved. February 12th at 7:30 p.m., just over 28 hours after Brianna was stabbed, police arrest both Scarlet and Eddie. The two of them had very interesting reactions to the arrest. Scarlet looks straight at the officer and she asks, how come I'm a suspect? How come you're a suspect?
Wow.
Yeah, is it because I'm the last person to have seen her? Is that why?
Oh.
You are under arrest on suspicion of murder.
I keep forgetting this is in the UK. Until that accent came up.
You are under arrest on suspicion of murder.
How come I'm a suspect?
How come you're a suspect?
Because I'm the last person that's seen her, is it?
I don't know. All the information I've received is you are a suspect. Okay.
So shut the fuck up.
Murder.
Meanwhile, Eddie is forced onto his knees. His hands are behind his back, and the officer with the body cam footage walks in and says, are you Eddie? Yeah. His voice is super monotone. No voice inflections, anything. Just, yeah. Robotic. The officer reads him his rights, and Eddie stands up and he just mumbles in a robotic tone. I can explain.
You Eddie?
Yeah.
Eddie, you're locked up suspicion of murder, alright? You didn't have to say anything, but you may harm you eventually mention when questioned. So you later line in court, and if you do say evidence, do you understand?
Yeah. I can't explain it.
No, listen.
Right, listen.
Do it all on interview, alright?
Right?
You're going to take it to the wrong corner, you'll be interviewed about it, they'll ask you questions, alright?
Yeah.
Within 48 hours of Brianna's murder, the Cheshire police would be the ones doing a lot of explaining. They told the media and press, and I quote, There is no information or intelligence to suggest this was a hate crime. By this point, the police had already read a ton of the transphobic messages between Eddie and Scarlet, and they believed because the two had a prior kill list that did not include transgender people, Brianna's murder was not a hate crime. They weren't targeting Brianna specifically for being trans. That's what they said. Brianna's lifestyle, they said, made her more vulnerable. They said because she's anxious and she stays indoors a lot and is just a very quite vulnerable individual, that's what made her relatively easy in terms of accessibility for the killers. That's what they said. And
that would have been plausible if you don't have the text messages, if you didn't have the text messages right there in front of your eyeballs that said, what exactly? I don't remember, but something along the line to see if it will scream. And the other homophobic shit that Eddie has been saying, specifically Eddie. I don't remember if what was her name again? Scarlet said anything super homophobic. I'm sure she has, but like you have the text messages right there.
Media ran with it. The media ran with it's not a hate crime and started committing hate crimes of their own. Yeah. In initial media reports, many news networks dead-named Brianna, which means you use and refer to someone by their old name that they no longer go by, which is incredibly offensive. Additionally, some publications even stated that Brianna had been living as a girl for several months. That's what they said. Who says that? Living as a girl for several months. Some headlines would switch between ignoring Brianna's trans status, or they would just refer to her only as, quote, transgender girl. While they also insisted in the same article, quote, there's no evidence of her murder being a hate crime. A lot of netizens said Brianna was being killed and bullied once more after her death by mainstream media. Now, as for the two killers, because they were minors at the time of their crime, their identities were not initially released to the public, but the judge decided to lift it and release their names because they were already somewhat circulating on TikTok. People were doxing them on TikTok. Their names were later released, and they became two of the most hated people in the UK.
As they should.
Now, before Eddie stops talking, he does a lot of talking. He blames the whole thing on Scarlet. He said he never tried to murder anyone because, and I quote,
but you did.
It just goes against everything I know and I believe, you know?
Shut the hell up.
One of the first things investigators noticed, even during Eddie's arrest, was that he had a ton of tiny scratches and cuts all over his arms, face, and hands, even one near his eyes. And they're like, where did you get those? Various reasons. Some were self-inflicted because, I was stressed about an upcoming exam. This one on the right arm was from chopping limes.
Oh, so it wasn't from the girl that was fighting for her life because she actually has something to live for, and you two are so pathetic and have nothing to live for? Those aren't wounds of self-defense from your victim?
Interesting. He said he was chopping a lime when the knife slipped and it cut his arm. But the cut was on his right arm, and Eddie is right-handed, so he just decided to chop limes with his left hand. And what about the cut near your eye? Oh, that was my cat. He claimed that day he went to the park to admire the trees, but he had this sudden overwhelming urge to urinate. So he went behind a tree to pee for about 3 seconds, and when he was finished, he turned around and saw Scarlet stabbing Brianna. And he played zero part in this. He was absolutely innocent. He said he frantically asked Scarlet, "What are you doing? Why are you doing this?" Scarlet told him bluntly, "Because she tried to break me and my boyfriend up. It's unforgivable." But that doesn't really make sense, does it? Because the police found pants and a jacket in Eddie's room splattered with Brianna's blood, as well as the blood-soaked knife found shoved into his closet. But Eddie sat there in the interrogation room. He was allowed to hold a blue stress ball to keep him from his stress, I guess. He said he was just so panicked and stressed and in a state of shock. And the police said, well, what about the blood on your clothes? Eddie claimed he went over to see if Brianna was still alive, and so he touched her and he got the blood on him. He said the blood was on his clothes, shoes, and hands because he was checking for a pulse. But that can't be true because blood splatter analysis showed that Eddie would have had to been close up when Brianna was stabbed. And what about the knife? Eddie had an excuse for that too. He stated he actually never took that knife out of the house ever. He came home, washed his hands, and for some reason he touched that knife and his hands weren't fully washed of blood, so it transferred onto the knife. Okay, what about the messages where you're both talking about murder? Eddie claims he just wanted to impress Scarlet. He said that Scarlet had told him in person that she was going to write a book, and I guess this was like their way of like method acting so for her writing. He said he just wanted to impress her with his knowledge. You guys were specifically talking about ways to preserve Brianna's body parts after the murder. Well, I thought Scarlet just wanted to learn about preservatives. I didn't agree with anything she said in those conversations. I mean, nothing was really a plan. It was just me joking. I don't tend to speak to people until I get used to them anyway.
I'm losing brain cells.
Eddie said he thought everything Scarlet was saying was just a made-up fantasy. He just went along with it because he wanted to impress her and he wanted a friend. That's it. Now, about the crazy transphobic messages, Eddie said, it was all a joke. I was just picking up what I've learned from people. You know how people talk about other people? I just pick it up and I use it.
No.
Why would you just simply do what they do? I have insufficient knowledge about myself to be able to tell you why I copy what other people do. He also claimed that he knew gay and bisexual people. So...
I don't hate gay people. I have a gay friend. I don't hate gay people. I'm not racist. I have a black friend. I'm not racist. I'm losing brain cells listening to this. How stupid can you be?
Okay. Yeah, I mean, the police were not inclined to believe anything Eddie was saying. So at that point, he just stopped saying anything at all. He stopped talking to anybody except his mother before the trial. He was diagnosed with selective mutism. Now, just a quick disclaimer, selective mutism is a very real thing. Selective mutism is an anxiety condition where the sufferer is capable of speech and understanding language, but is incapable or unable to in certain situations that typically deal with extreme loss or grief or stress. They can't talk in front of strangers. Sufferers said it feels like a switch suddenly flips and they can't speak even if they want to. And they just want to like grab at their throats and they're trying to push the words out. It's so frustrating. And it's even more frustrating because it only happens in certain situations. So people feel like you're faking it, but they're not. Now, the condition is relatively rare and it's found in less than 1% of the population, typically in younger children under the age of 5 and typically in girls. So Eddie's sudden onset of selective mutism, very rare indeed.
But it doesn't really help him in any ways, right? In the trial?
It does.
It does.
Yeah, it does. Okay, so let me tell you. First, the trial is delayed for months because Eddie's legal team is struggling to communicate with him on how he wants to proceed. The trial would officially begin November 27th, 2023.
Honestly, what is there to communicate? All the evidence is right there. You have multiple witnesses.
It would last for 18 days. And for the first time in British history, due to Eddie's new selective mutism, and again, if it ever sounds like I'm skeptical about selective mutism, I'm not skeptical about the condition or
Yeah, no, at all. I totally get you. I was just gonna ask, but is his legit? Because I have my doubts about his selective mutism being legit.
existence or the real life effects that it has on real people who have it. I guess all I'm trying to say is I can't be 100% certain that that is what Eddie had, right? Now, it did make the trial unnecessarily difficult. For the first time in British history, Eddie was allowed to give evidence by typing it out on his computer. That's how he gave his statements. He would sit in a different room from the courtroom with his little keyboard, and whenever he wanted to ask a question or say something, words would appear on the screen and they had to be read out for the rest of the court. And it was a whole process because Eddie would stop to think or he would delete everything he was typing, fix up his grammar, and then someone would have to read it out loud.
Do they see like real life
That's
typing?
Yeah.
infuriating.
And it's just annoying. Like, I think
Yeah.
it's also kind of insulting. Like, really now?
Yeah.
Really.
You know? And then he and Scarlet were also given fidget toys in court, which a lot of people were upset by.
Why?
And I can kind of understand. I was trying to wrap my head around it. I can understand the use of fidget toys in courtrooms if the purpose is for a smoother trial for the victim's family. But it is kind of annoying when they show up with like fidget toys and Sudoku books that they're allowed to work on. Like you're just puzzling. Like I think that's kind of I mean, I don't think that they're respectful people in any way, shape, or form to begin with. But
Yeah.
Eddie was just playing Sudoku at like high key points of the trial, especially when they're describing Brianna's stab wounds. He's just puzzling. And just as Eddie blamed Scarlet, Scarlet and her attorney were blaming Eddie. I mean, the whole thing was really ridiculous. At one point, Eddie's attorneys even accused Scarlet and her defense team for stealing their defense. It's giving, I robbed a bank and then you robbed me. How dare you? Side note, at first, before the trial, Scarlet did try to tell the police the whole Manchester guy story where she was like, oh, Brianna left to go meet a guy from Manchester. But once the police brought in all the evidence, she started answering with just no comment, no comment. Eddie did it. She said the same thing about the text messages, that they were all fantasies, that she just liked to fantasize about this. The prosecutors asked her, why even fantasize about killing your friends? Like, that's not a normal thing. And Scarlet would respond, I just found it all quite interesting. Why did you tell Eddie that you already killed 2 people? I just wanted him to think that I was a serial killer to add to the fantasy. You told him that you wanted to eat human flesh. Did you intend to eat human flesh? No. Then why did you tell Eddie that you wanted to? I just know that some serial killers would, like they'd be cannibals, for example. I thought I would introduce the fantasy with Eddie. It was just weird. During the trial, Brianna's mom was devastated when she found out that her daughter was killed by someone she knew as a friend. She never met Scarlet, but Brianna used to talk about her all the time, about how they would hang out at McDonald's afterwards. And she would later say, it was the worst possible person that could have done this to her because it was someone that we trusted, someone that Brianna trusted. As a parent, you would never imagine that another child, that your child is met from school, would be capable of such a thing.
Maybe I just have very paranoid family members because I've never gotten that treatment. Like, you're going out with who? Do I know their parents? Next thing you know, next day, they know their parents. They know exactly what area of town they live in, and they know friends of the parents. Like, they do a whole detective work. Where are you going? What time? Who else is going there? All right, you're going to let me know when you're there. You're going to let me know when you come back. You're going to let me know when there's another person involved, and you're going to call me and stuff like that. So I guess it's just a difference in paranoia.
It was also revealed that just 4 months before Brianna's murder, Scarlet did in fact poison a 13-year-old at her previous school. That's why she transferred. She brought a bag of gummies to school. They were cannabis edibles, and she kept trying to get everyone to try it. She's like, try it, try it. I mean, by this point, she already had a reputation of being a creepy, untrustworthy person, so everybody rejected. Scarlet was so peeved off by this that she went up to a 13-year-old at her old school and basically just forced them to take the gummy. Within 15 minutes, the unnamed 13-year-old started feeling an odd sensation, tingly sensations, like their heart was racing, their mind-body connection was not intact. They were hospitalized because, again, we don't know how much. Like 13-year-olds, I don't think that they can metabolize much cannabis. And
so what happened?
They were spiked. They were poisoned. They were drugged.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nothing happened to her?
Which, I mean, it was a huge deal, but the school did not treat it like a big deal. Essentially, Scarlet poisoned a 13-year-old, and this is crazy, but Scarlet was not expelled from her school. She was just suspended for 5 days. And in that time, she was arranged to transfer to a new school, and her old school said it was to give her a second chance.
Oh my
She got transferred to
fucking
Birchwood
God.
Community High, where she would meet Brianna. This was her second chance. The new high school, they didn't even know the extent of the poisoning. They just thought that she brought weed to school. That's why she was being transferred. During the trial, it's revealed that Scarlet and Eddie had tried to kill Brianna twice before. So the ibuprofen was one attempt. And the second attempt was they wanted to lure her out to the park 2 weeks before the actual murder, but it was Brianna's stepdad's birthday. So she did not go. Now, a lot of netizens initially thought that Scarlet was the most vile of the two. Like, she was more evil than Eddie because there was a lot of notes and journals that were released by the public. Her obsession with these really creepy movies and the serial killers. People.
Also going back to what I mentioned when there's like a certain population of people that are like super, like Scarlet, obsessed with serial killers. To the point where they're like, ooh, they like have crushes and fantasies about them. And I just think, really? Like, what are you seeing exactly? To the point where if you were to ever come across any serial killer to that level, you think you're not gonna be one of their victims? You think you're gonna live off your fantasy of being secret lovers and stuff? Like, you just clown shoes. Literally go back to the circus because you sound so goofy. I can't wrap my head around that thought process.
Thought that because she's the one that befriended Brianna, she's the one sending all these text messages to Eddie, he's just engaging, right? But she seems more excited about killing someone. That's what netizens thought. But
Also, that point that she said how Eddie initially took the did the stabbing, but Scarlet then took the knife from him, and then it seems to have done majority of the first initial stabbings.
But then after the trial, a lot of netizens think that Eddie is actually the more evil one. I mean, don't get me wrong, Scarlet is twisted. Netizens think that she's vile, evil, gross, and she's fascinated and excited about the idea of killing someone, and she needs help. She needs to be kept away from society. She's a danger and she's an evil person.
So
but
what happened to her?
Eddie seems to have killed on pure hatred alone. Like, he hated Brianna for who she was. The defense attorneys would argue that because there were other people on the kill list that were not transgender, that meant that this was not a hate crime. This was just two people who wanted to kill someone and chose Brianna not because of her identity, but because she was vulnerable. Meanwhile, during the trial, Eddie's dad could not show up to court because this is so foul. But just a few days before Eddie went on trial for murdering a 16-year-old girl, Eddie's dad drove up to a bus stop in his Maserati. He saw two 16-year-old girls standing there waiting for the bus, and he pulled down his pants, exposed his privates, and started touching himself while making eye contact with the two 16-year-olds.
This couple days before that killing, Eddie's dad.
Not the killing, the murder trial. So he's already.
So yeah, okay, that gives a little glimpse as to why Eddie is the person that he is. Makes sense.
Are he gonna be on?
Oh, this is in the middle of the trial.
Yeah, before the murder trial starts, like while they're prepping.
Is driving around in a Maserati.
Yeah.
And then just pull up to two young girls and doing that in public.
Yeah, the girls that are the same age as Brianna.
And then he was caught?
Yeah.
Good.
He did it twice, actually. So that day he would drive and he exposed himself and touched himself, and then he was driving around town the rest of the day and then found those two girls again on the street and did it again. When he was brought in by the police, he argued that he needed to have his pants down even while driving due to his medical issues. What are his medical issues? He said that he would need to urgently pee, like urinate at any time. So he always drove with his wee-wee out, is basically what he's saying. Eddie's dad, Kyle Ratcliffe, also had indecent photos and secret recording videos of 12 to 15-year-old girls in the changing rooms of a water park on his phone. He tried to argue that someone sent them to him on Snapchat, but that was easily proven as a lie. He also searched up on the internet explicit acts involving school children while his son was preparing for a murder trial. He would be tried in the very same court as his son, and he was sentenced to 15 months in prison, so he couldn't show up to Eddie's, the second half of his trial.
15 months.
Wow, this is crazy.
Yeah, I don't even know what to say about that. But in the end, prosecutors argued that both Eddie and Scarlet were equally guilty. They both planned and acted on the murder together. It didn't matter who stabbed or if they both or who started it first. They played a role in her death. Exactly. December 20th, 2023, Scarlet and Eddie were both found guilty of murder. The judge stated transphobia was an aggravating factor, but they did not get charged with a hate crime. They were both given life sentences. Scarlet was sentenced to a minimum of 22 years before she's eligible for parole. Eddie, a minimum of 20. Brianna's mom, Esther, gave her impact statement where she told the court, due to Brianna's autism, ADHD, and anxiety, she wasn't really good at spotting danger, but nobody could have predicted this situation was going to be like this. She said she was devastated that it was someone that Brianna considered a friend.
It's just so sad also because she knew something was so off. Like, really, but it was too late at that point. But she wasn't so ditzy and unaware. Like, she knew, like, this is weird, yo. Like, it's so sad.
It was going to be like this. She said she was devastated that it was someone that Brianna considered a friend. She said someone we believed to be her friend, someone that we trusted, someone that I was so happy that she had, fearing that my child had been lonely. I have moments where I feel sorry for them because they have also ruined their own lives. But I have to remember that they felt no empathy for Brianna when they left her bleeding to death after their premeditated and vicious attack, which was carried out not because Brianna had done anything wrong, but just because one hated trans people and the other thought it would be fun. I wish we knew more about Brianna's life before she passed, but I think just seeing the way that Brianna's mom, Esther, has been carrying herself with so much grace and compassion, which she absolutely does not need to have in this situation, I think it's very easy to tell what kind of person Brianna was too, because this is her mom.
I mean, just look at Eddie and his dad's relationship. It very super rare cases. It doesn't have, you can have a very loving household, but the child still turns out to be a monster. Maybe some brain chemistry is off with them. I don't know, but more times than not, it all starts at home. The Brianna seems to be a really like sunshine to a lot of people around her, even if she was lacking a little bit of sunshine in her life. Just look at her mom, Esther. Sorry, she sounds, I could hope she's very lovely. And then there you have the other side, Eddie and his dad.
When the verdict was read
The
for Scarlet
pedo.
and Eddie, Esther said, "When the verdict came through, I saw how devastated one of the moms was. Scarlet's parents have been really, like, they have fully disowned Scarlet. They're apologizing nonstop. They want nothing to do with Scarlet." But Brianna's mom said, "That's how I felt when I found out about what happened to Brianna. I don't feel that either Scarlet or Eddie are the type of people that would get on very well in prison, and I suppose that is now a worry for their parents. For me, I feel that Brianna is in a better place, but they've got to continue knowing what their children have done. And it's true that we've all lost our children." At one vigil held for Brianna, everyone turned on their phone flashlights and lifted them in the air for 2 minutes of silence. And Brianna's mom said, "If she could see from wherever she is now, I think she would have been very happy." Brianna's mother, Esther, now has started Peace in Mind UK, a nonprofit dedicated to teaching mindfulness techniques in schools with the aim of teaching children to cope with negative emotions in a very healthy way. There is a GoFundMe that I've linked below where all the profits will go to training teachers. But there's a book called Beyond the Gender Binary, and it reads, "How are you..."
Wait, I kind of want to read this.
There is a GoFundMe that I've linked below where all the profits will go to training teachers.
Her mom, Esther said, "The traumatic impact that this had on my family was so enormous that I decided to help make a difference to our society to reduce the risk of this happening again to another young person."
But there's a book called Beyond the Gender Binary, and it reads, "How are you supposed to be believed about the harm that you experience when people don't even believe that you exist?" And that's how the trans community felt when the authorities and the press refused to classify this as a hate crime. There are some vile comments on Twitter of people dead naming Brianna, of people misgendering Brianna, and somehow trying to excuse her killers because Brianna was transgender. The vigils held for Brianna were a mixture of vigils and protest. I mean, it was a mixture of grief and anger. Many of Brianna's friends who have spoken out since her murder, many of them are from the trans community, and they said the minute that they spoke out, strangers started flooding their comment sections with just deplorable things.
Yeah.
One friend told Vice News, "They can't let go of their horrible politics for just 1 minute. They're constantly trying to debate or trying to say that she was a man. It's vile." One of Brianna's friends stated, "I cried myself to sleep the last few nights. I don't feel safe to leave my own house anymore, and I remember hearing about Bree's death, and I instantly ranted to my mom, and I just said, I don't know what to do anymore. I feel like nowhere is safe for us." According to a spokesperson for the Mermaids UK, a charity for transgender youth, they saw a 31% spike that week in calls to their helpline. Another friend of Brianna's just said, "I pray that her death isn't meaningless, and for the UK government and society to see the issue and change, because we can't let this happen again." Brianna's biological dad stated, "No amount of time spent in prison will be enough for these monsters. They are pure evil." But Eddie is trying to appeal right now, and I'm not sure what we can do as netizens, but I hope this video is a reminder of the person that he is and how he does not deserve an appeal, and he does not get to make up all these bizarre excuses of how he just talks like that because he heard other people talk like that, and how he knows gay people. He played Sudoku while the prosecutors recounted how Brianna was stabbed. He texted that he wanted to know if it would scream like a boy or girl. Brianna's funeral was held March 15th, 2023. She was pulled by white horses in a white carriage with pink feathers. All mourners were asked to wear pink. And Amelia, Brianna's best friend, was in attendance, and this was This was the first time they were meeting in person at her funeral. I think being a doctor for inmates would be a very emotionally exhausting job, especially if that includes juvenile offenders. Dr. Church was sitting in front of Scarlet, and she said that she had something she wanted to say. She was incredibly calm, and she said, I indeed did kill Brianna. I stabbed her. Why? I found it exciting. She said that she was the one that made the final injuries, and if she wasn't interrupted, she would have dragged Brianna's body to the secluded woods to hide her. Why? I never wanted her to leave. I didn't want her to stop being my friend, so I killed her so that she could always be with me. She admitted to the doctor that she wanted to take parts of Brianna's bodies as a token. She wanted...
I know my limits. I know my mentality. You will never catch me being a doctor in a prison. Suddenly that prison is just going to turn into a morgue. Because you tell me this stuff? No. No. Stephanie's going to end up making a case about me.
to keep Brianna's pretty eyes. Scarlet would later immediately take it all back and blame Eddie for the attack. She was also asked if she had any regret for Brianna's murder, and she said, I did for 2 hours. Now I don't give a f*** and I do it again.
Whoa.
Which, side note, it's also messy, but Scarlet created another kill list while she was in prison, and it's just names of like several staff members, doctors, and guards that were taking care of her.
Whoa, whoa, whoa.
Meanwhile, Eddie is allegedly in speech therapy on taxpayer money and complains about how fruit is not fresh enough at his facility. And here's what's interesting. Apparently, doodles mean something. Like what someone chooses to doodle and at what point they doodle that could have a lot of meaning. During the trial, Scarlet sat there folding a piece of paper, refolding it, opening it, folding it, and drawing a very detailed eye. She would color the pupils and sketch the eyebrows. And it's stated that people who draw eyes want to be seen, or they feel like they're being watched and they don't like it. It's likely that Scarlet wanted to be seen, but she
Very
won't,
much so,
because she will be in prison and she will be watched 24/7 by guards. Meanwhile, thousands of people will remember Brianna forever. Thousands of people have showed up to her vigils to hold signs that read, "Rest in pride, rest in power." Pride and power again, something Scarlet and Eddie will never have, ever. And that is the case of Brianna Ghey. It's a really heavy one. What are your thoughts? I'm going to leave a link to Brianna's mother's charity in the description. If you have even like $1, or if you resonate with their mission, I would check it out. And with that being said, please stay safe, and I will see you guys on Wednesday.
It was pretty heavy. I don't even know what to say that I haven't said it before, so I'm just going to take a scroll through the comments. Yeah, you would feel really terrible for making that joke. Honestly, though, if your friend was alive, then you could be able to laugh. But I know you're going to feel, though you shouldn't, guilty for sending that message. Right? I totally forgot about the not guilty sign. Bro. So I don't know why they're gonna try to appeal. You're in life, okay? Life, that's it. No chance for parole. Stay muted, okay? Just rot in jail. Teenagers are incredibly scary and evil. Like you think, oh, they can't do anything, they're kids. Like they don't know any better. Like they're not gonna do any harm. They are scary. Really, that's you think it really you could say it starts in childhood, but it ramps up during their teenage years. This is when the monster really starts to show itself. But I'm glad that I don't want to say I'm glad. You could be glad that, funerals are usually black and depressing, but some people choose to turn a funeral into more of a joyous thing per se, to celebrate that person's life and not be super sad about it, which is very natural feeling, of course. So the fact that they had like an all pink um theme to it is really, it's heartwarming. Yeah, why? Why would they give them little fidget toys? And so like that video, that little clip of him just with the ball in the interrogation room, like knock that shit out of his hands. Yeah, that is just, I hate that. That is incredibly annoying. You're giving them fidget toys because they're so anxious and stressed that they can't even talk or anything. And meanwhile, you're just writing off any form of hate crime to the victim. Oh, it wasn't a hate crime. No. Very clearly, yes. You have the evidence right there. That is sad. I thought they would have met before, but I guess that was their first time meeting, and that is very tear jerking. Oh, yes. I got really annoyed at first because they were like, since they were minors, they wanted to keep their identities a secret. But people online, they're like, hell no, we know who these people are. This is their names. This is how they look like. They go to this school. Who knows? They live around this area. This is their address if they know it. And then the court was like, you know what? F it. Yes, this is who they are. Yes, take away that secret identities. Don't protect them. You should be protecting the public from them. I'm just going to read these two messages then, or comments. A guy from my high school class murdered a trans girl I knew. This was a very small school in the countryside of Sweden. I did meet the girl at a big party where I left my friends to spend the night with her. She was life. She was brightness and darkness and swept me right away with her chaos. She was beautiful and kind. Her name was Amelia Lundberg. This murder didn't get any recognition and was brushed under the rug because drugs was involved. Such bullshit. Oh my God. His name was Andreas Anderson. Thank you. Yes. Spread that name. His identity was protected and his name not mentioned by media. He got 15 years and was 21 and got 15 years because of his age for the brutal murder of Amelia. She was found in the river going through the town, stabbed and beaten to death. I'll always remember her and the vile injustice in this case. That is disgusting. I nearly cried. Why? Okay. Last one before I just start bawling. I lived around the same area a few years back. Eddie's dad actually tried to lure my little girl into the house. She was supposed to call at the house so Eddie's sister could play outside. When her daughter knocked on the door, Eddie's sister, he has his sister, oh my God, in this household. Um, he knocked on the door. The dad answered and told her that his daughter was not home yet, but if she wanted to, my daughter could come inside and wait with him. F no. My little girl refused because she was taught better and walked off. A few moments later, my daughter got a call from Eddie's sister saying, I thought you was coming around. She told my little girl that her dad is strange, saying he knew I was inside upstairs. Why would he say that to you? What the hell? I was told this story today as Eddie Radcliffe's dad has now this week been found guilty. Yes, what? You said 15 months. I feel like with the things that he did, he should be getting so much more than that. You're so relieved that my daughter walked out because you taught her better. Good parenting. If only there was a world where people could just be themselves, just safely out in public and open, just openly be themselves without having to be worried about being killed, abused, bullied, harassed, just for being themselves. But that will, honestly, I don't think it'll ever happen because there's always going to be monsters such as these and monsters that started attacking and harassing all the other transgender friends, was it? Or not even friends, people who just heard the case and spoke on it. And then haters just went and commented under their post and started attacking them. For what reason? Just because how they live their life, you just don't agree with? I will never be able to wrap my head around it. Fortunately, I am not in a good financial place to be donating, but if you guys are, I hope you guys can. Um, she said she was gonna link it. Is it here? No, I don't know. She said she was going to, but it's not here. What the heck? I'll try to find it, and if I find it, maybe I'll link it to my video. But you guys stay safe. This one was tough, but I guess maybe my next video, I want to try to catch up to these older ones. Maybe the next one would be the severed head stabbed on Japanese school fence with no in mouth. Let's play a game. What the hell?